Okay, let's start this thing.
Let's start this motherfucker.
This is such a long day. Okay, we're gonna go. We're going. We're doing it.
We're going. I know. I was like, do we have anything funny to say? I got funny things to say. I'm funny all the time. I'm not funny. I mean, I'm okay. I'm fine. But I don't do it professionally.
Yeah, you do your fucking we're back thing and start talking about your next thing. You know what I'm saying? And then I'll talk about my stuff and then you'll talk about your stuff. We'll keep doing that.
This is exactly the energy I was hoping we would both bring into this particular podcast recording. Just like, let's just fucking figure it out. We did the things. We put words in a document. We did our homework. We watched the fucking thing. Like, let's just talk about it now.
We both showed up. We're both fucking here. I don't know. Okay, just you do. Yeah, start talking, man. Just start talking.
Brother sibling.
Welcome, friends and chosen family, to Brother Sibling Movie, a podcast where two siblings, that's us, talk about movies we love from our childhood and get drunk. Oh, and also, we sometimes discover other movies for the first time, centered around a different theme every season. I'm your brother, Evan Kerna.
And I'm your sibling, Mare Morgan. And if you're watching the YouTube video, this is my dog, Selkie. You can see her down here. She's being very needy right now.
You might not be able to see her in the YouTube video because I'm probably going to crop her out. Although, now that you've mentioned her, I won't. And I will cut away to Selkie. So thank you for making more work for me to do.
Anytime, babe. That's what I'm here for.
I know. This week's movie is Pleasantville, the 1998 film that asked the all-important question, can orgasms make you see color?
They sure can. And I wrote that and was like, well, this is the roughest transition we're probably going to have this entire season into what the theme of our season is, which is siblings.
You know, I just want to say before we get into siblings that let's not forget that also punching people in the face and getting sad about your wife wanting to leave you can also make you see color. One size does not fit all.
Even reading books can make you see in color.
Knowledge gives you technicolor is what we're saying.
Yes.
So do we need to talk a little bit about the theme at all? Do we all get it? Do you want to explain at all why we decided on siblings? We talked about it last week, but it's fun. It's movies about siblings and sibling relationships being centered in the movies of choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I don't know anything about, so I wanted to learn what it was like to have a sibling.
Yeah, you decided to go to a master sibling course and learn things.
I did, and I was like, I've never heard about this magical thing called having a sibling. What is this?
And someone was like, is it like a person who, like, lives in the house with you and that you grow up with? And you're like, I already know all of this. Grr. God damn it. Stop asking stupid questions. Sibling masterclass.
Oh my God, I'm such an asshole.
That's great. I will not keep the entirety of your 10-minute rant about
please don't. It doesn't paint me in a
the
very
idiots
good
in the
light.
master gardening class, but I might leave some of it in because it's fun.
They're not idiots. I just know more than they do, and it was frustrating. That was it. They aren't idiots. They're learning, and I want to support them in learning. And it was just very boring to sit there. That's all.
Yeah. That and I've felt the same thing in many places. You go to a film festival and you're like, oh my God, nobody knows how to make a movie in this place.
Oh my God, I know. It's like that.
Are they gonna get up and people are gonna ask them questions about the stupid thing I just watched them do?
It's the
fun.
The thing of Ron Swanson being in like a hardware store and someone being like, hi sir, can I help you? And he just says, I know more than you, and walks away.
To be perfectly fair, that could be almost anybody in a Home Depot or a Lowe's.
Accurate. Oh, yeah.
Literally almost anybody on the planet knows more than employees at those large chain hardware stores.
Yeah, duh. Anyway, Um,
Anyway, let's talk about our connection to this Here movie. What do you remember about this movie from 1998, Mare, when you were 8 years old?
yeah, I was 8. I watched it. I thought it was really pretty. I thought it was cool that it was all in black and white, and then it slowly went into color. And I missed every single other thing that the film was about.
Yeah, it's much deeper. Yeah, it's got
It's
things it's
much
trying to say,
deeper.
and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's more deep than just things are gonna turn colors now. So that's
Yeah, there's a
helpful.
purpose behind it. It's a like visual metaphor. There's a whole larger thing. But yeah, when I
Hmm.
was a kid, I was like, "Oh, it's like 50s clothing and like that's really fun and cool."
Hmm.
And then it's black and white and then it becomes fully colorized. Ah, it's rad.
Yes. I definitely remember watching it around the time it came out, probably. Yeah, I've seen it at least twice before this, so I'm familiar with it. But yeah, honestly, most of what I remembered about it was, the large, the big picture stuff. Kids go into TV, they're black
Yeah,
and white, things turn to color, things change in the town, everybody learns a lesson, and then somebody comes out of the TV into the real world. Like,
and it's done.
honestly, the turning things to color is one of the best things this movie has going for. I think it's the thing that makes it memorable, like that particular gimmick,
100%. 100%.
because it's like, and honest, and man, the whole time through I was just like, I don't know what technology they had, but like, how hard was it for people in 1998 to be rotoscoping that footage? I've got
I
some fun
I
facts about technical things about how they
okay.
did accomplish it that we'll get to later, which will be fun. But
Okay, great. Yeah, because I was gonna say, I was like, there were some scenes I was pretty sure I was like, I think they painted this set in grayscale because it would have been easier than rotoscoping out the bits in color or something. I don't know. We'll talk about it.
yeah,
Do you wanna Selkie. No, thank you. Sorry.
I'd love to selkie. I selkie all night long.
I just this is what I'm dealing with right now. This.
Dear niece, what are you doing? Why are you standing there
Why are
looking
you
at my sibling?
why are you like this? Okay.
Yes, I'm happy to start us off with a plot synopsis of Pleasantville. Pleasantville is a thought provoking dramedy directed by Gary Ross. The film follows two modern day teenagers, David and Jennifer, who are magically transported into the black and white world of a 1950s television show called, appropriately, Pleasantville. The show portrays a perfect, idealized suburban town where everything is orderly, conservative, and uninfluenced by outside change. I would also like to note that it appears to be a comedy that is not funny at all.
Accurate. Accurate.
As the two siblings begin to alter the behaviors of the town's inhabitants, who are initially trapped in a rigid, outdated mindset, the color begins to seep into the world, symbolizing the awakening of personal freedom, sexual liberation, and social transformation. You want to finish us off with the last
Oh,
paragraph?
sure. As the town evolves, the characters must confront the tensions between maintaining their utopian, I would say quote unquote utopian, lifestyle and embracing change, all while learning important lessons about individuality, love, and the nature of progress. The film explores themes of conformity, personal growth, and the impact of art and culture on society. And ChatGPT.
That sounds accurate. Yeah, that
I
sounds
think
like
it's
what happened in the movie.
pretty accurate. I was like, wow, for a 2 hour long film, not a lot happens. Is that
This, you know what? I'll burn my hot take early. Yeah, the
Do
first
it.
thing I thought when I finished this movie was like, I think this would have made a really good Twilight Zone episode, you know? If
Yes.
this if this was like 22 or even 44 minutes long, like I think they could have done a really tight job and sort of like tightened up some of the thematic elements and just focused on like the important bits. Because
Yeah.
it's true, like the main thing going on in this is that people are experiencing their emotions for the first time
Yeah.
and turning to color, which is a cool concept. It's a little bit sparse for a 2-hour movie,
It's
but that doesn't mean it's bad necessarily.
I think it's one of those movies that like um similar to Bilbo Baggins, it feels a little like butter being scraped over too much bread, you know? Um
Yeah.
like
Wow.
I think it would have been a great Twilight Zone episode, a great Black Mirror episode, something that
Mhm.
is like in the 45-minute category. Um
Mhm.
Not saying I didn't enjoy watching it because it's a
Ditto.
visually very pleasing movie. I didn't like feel the 2 hours. I mean, this wasn't like Dragonheart where I was like, "Make it stop."
Every second was torture.
I was
Just
like, "Make it stop."
crawling towards the finish line. Like, do I
And
have to watch another hour and 38 minutes of this stupid movie?
it's so terrible. But this one was one of those movies that like, yeah, even though maybe it wasn't as tight or precise as it could have been, and there was a lot of kind of expository spaces that could have been filled.
Right.
Um, it was so it's so well shot. It's
It is very
so
well shot.
it's a very well shot film. It's so well art directed. The production design is obviously incredible. The cinematography, the lighting, the costumes,
Mhm.
the acting, like all of it is so good. All of that
I'm
like art
I'm reminded how
department
good
stuff.
yeah, I'm reminded how good Jeff Daniels is just as an
Ugh,
actor at
oh my
everything that
god.
he does. He's got such range, that guy.
He's so good. He was, like, genuinely one of my favorite parts of this movie. I have a whole section on him that I just, like, wanna talk about him being a person.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
Yeah, I
it's
have a lot
good.
of similar takeaways. It's
Yeah,
like, yeah, it's not fun to watch for sure. It's just, yeah, I think it will occasionally get lost in the sauce. In fact, I
mm.
have some notes. No, I
You got some notes for Gary Ross?
That's right, Mr. Gary Ross. This is Gary Ross's directorial debut. He'd been a screenwriter for a very long time, so he wrote probably the most famous thing he did was he wrote Big, the Tom Hanks
Okay, yeah, yeah,
vehicle
yeah.
from back in the
For
day.
child,
Um,
um, sexual
yeah,
child?
child becomes a man and acts like a child and has to learn how to grow up, but then he gets to be a kid again. Spoilers, the movie is like 35 years old. No,
Yeah,
it's more than that. Oh my
because
god, it
as an
came out
adult,
before. Oh my god. I,
he does have sex with an adult woman, even though he is mentally a child. It's
does that
crazy.
happen? I don't remember Big that well.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's such a bad take, dude.
Oh man, I
God
know. I'm
damn it.
sorry. I'm
Evan, I
still
swear to God, if we get canceled, not even 5 episodes into our second season, I'm gonna be so mad.
whatever. I would have given anything to have gotten
Okay, let's
laid by
move
a
on.
hot older woman when I was
No,
12 years old.
no, no, we're moving on. I can't. There's no way. Cut all of that out, please, and thank you for the love of Christ.
Never. It's staying in. The kid stays in
Great.
the picture, literally. um, so he wrote Big, co-wrote it with Anne Spielberg, Steven Spielberg's sister. Interesting point of fact. He also directed Seabiscuit, but this was his first movie. This was Gary Ross's directorial debut,
Man.
and I think there's little things to me that I think give that away. Like, I feel like there's a few too many Dutch angles. I mean, I don't know. It seems all intentional, but like the 1950s TV show doesn't feel like it's sort of looks like a 50s TV show. It looks like it's filmed like a current thing. Yes.
Can I? Sorry, I'm raising my hand so I can ask a question because you
Yes.
have said this probably 5 times on past episodes, and I've forgotten. What the fuck is a Dutch angle?
Oh, it's when you take the camera and do this to it. So it's like
Ah,
think of like a Terry Gilliam shot where you're
got it,
like,
got it, got it.
oh,
Okay.
things are weird and off center, you know?
Oh yeah, because it was like every time you see, because that was something I noticed that every time you see the mayor, it's
Hmm.
like canted.
Which makes
But I
sense
did
because
not.
he's supposed to be evil, and I guess there's a case to be
Yeah,
made that like if the perspective that you have is with the kids, then they are experiencing this world from this kind of like angle, you know, this kind of it's
sure.
disconcerting. But I don't know. I just felt like they did I don't know, like if you watch WandaVision, I'm not crazy about WandaVision, but like they do the visual language of a 1950s TV show really
Very,
well. It like
very
it's
well.
spot on. It looks just like an I Love Lucy or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, now, interesting to note, Gary Ross also kind of before he started screenwriting, he worked in politics. So he worked on Ted Kennedy's presidential campaign in 1980. He also consulted for
Shit.
the 1988 Michael Dukakis campaign and also on Bill Clinton's. So I think he has kind of like as a artistic voice, you can tell in this
Mm.
movie that he opted to be his first feature film. You can tell that he has kind of like political consciousness on the mind, you know. He's
Yeah,
got it seems
that
like he's
makes
got
sense.
something to say. This is an interesting quote I found from Wikipedia. Director Gary Ross stated, "This movie is about the fact that personal repression gives rise to larger political oppression. That when we're afraid of certain things in ourselves and we're afraid of change, we project those fears onto other things, and a lot of very ugly social situations can develop."
Preach.
Man's got something to say, and you know, I can't fault him for that. I like that. I like it when somebody's got something to say. It's a little on the nose sometimes, but hey, that's
It's
Hollywood.
it's Hollywood, baby. Yeah, I think you can definitely see the political leanings and that stuff. It does get somewhat a little diluted at times, but it's certainly still there, and it's
Yeah.
yeah,
But you know, it's also a movie about learning besides it being about you know, repression in people's hearts and what that can lead to once they have knowledge, once they've like eaten the apple, so to speak.
hmm
Um, you know, it's also just about I mean, to me, I think the movie shines the most when it's doing any scene where things are changing to color. It's like
yeah,
when it's indulging in those kind of like big or little moments for people that help them engage with their emotions. And I do think that that is like, I just wish that it had kind of stuck more closely to that specific metaphor of what the color and it does a pretty good job, but there's just a few other things. But I like that idea. I like the idea that like and nobody had done it before, which is kind of nuts.
yeah,
um
and I
that
think that was
let's take this black and white world and turn it to color because we're getting out of this repressive mindset and feeling our feelings and being, you know, engaging with our emotions, our
yeah,
emotional intelligence.
and it was definitely the I don't know, it was I remember it was a very visually groundbreaking film when it came out. Like people really responded to it because it was done really well, and the yeah, going from black and white to color is
Hmm.
something that hadn't really like been done since,
Hmm.
like
Well,
Wizard
not
of
over the course.
Oz.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Not over the course of a whole movie where it would have been selectively very difficult
right,
to do.
exactly,
Because yeah,
exactly.
obviously there's the famous example of the Wizard of Oz, which is like the most well-known black and white
Right.
to color move in a movie or whatever. But Yeah, I'm sure it took a lot of people many hours to accomplish that.
Yes, for real. I was thinking about that. I was like, God, the poor rotoscoping crew who had to do all of this work. Good Lord.
Yeah, pretty nuts. Let's see. What do we want to dive into? I have one specific thing I want to talk about, but
Go
maybe
for
we should
it.
just talk about the characters.
Yeah, let's talk
And
about the characters.
yeah, because I feel like this is. I was in our planning sessions, listeners. I was talking to Mare about how like last week's episode Totoro has a lot of super iconic scenes, and I feel like this movie doesn't have specifically iconic scenes. There's a few very memorable moments, but it is really at the heart of it a character piece about all the people in the town and our sibling duo who are kind of like, you know, becoming who are changing because of their involvement in this town. Who's that big burrito on your lap?
Oh my God. So sorry. Selkie was was knocking into my hand so much to like get attention that I was like, fucking fine. Sit on my lap then, you monster. She was not.
This is great. Selkie, do you have any thoughts you want to share about Pleasantville? Who is your favorite character?
Selkie.
Selkie. Selkie, talk to me. Talk to me.
She's like, Uncle, I know you secretly hate me.
Just because I hate all dogs doesn't mean I hate you, Selkie.
She cannot hear you. But if she could, she would be hurt.
Understandable.
Okay, I'm sorry. Single parenthood of a dog is its own thing. Yeah, so Jesus fuck. Okay, let's talk about the characters. So we kind of started out you know, with the two main characters played
Mhm.
by Reese Witherspoon and Tobey Maguire, America's
Yes.
sweethearts of the late 90s.
Spider-Man and Legally Blonde.
Her name is Elwood, please. Um,
Nope, she's Legally Blonde to me
got
because
it.
I don't bother. And Spider-Man isn't Peter Parker either, even though that one's also easy.
Oh my God. I love it. So,
I'm
yeah.
a visual learner.
So David is who I was in high school. He has one other friend. He memorizes obscure trivia facts and
Mhm.
doesn't talk to girls who he's interested in because he's scared of them.
This is why we remain friends as well as being siblings, because I was probably also Tobey Maguire. I don't think either of us was Slutty McSlutterson in high school anyway.
No. No, I mean like the alcohol and smoking thing, but not the like this is just I'm so sorry. This is just the most insane way to record a podcast with a 65-pound dog on my lap.
This is gonna make it so hard to actually. This is gonna make. Wait, can you push your windscreen down just a little bit? If it's yes. Oh my god. Okay, this is gonna be the thumbnail for this episode for sure. Dear Selkie, stop being such a powder puff girl,
So
which
you
is
just what
a
if you
word I made up just now.
what if you just stopped? Anywho. So
David and
yeah,
Jennifer. They're
David
the
and
siblings,
Jennifer.
the titular siblings. Well, they're not in the title, but
They're not in
they're
the title.
siblings.
They're siblings and they're twins also, importantly, but they're very different.
Really?
Yeah, that's the whole thing of like the one
Did
of
they mention that?
yeah, one of Jennifer's friends at the very beginning is like, I don't even understand. Like, how are you guys even twins? Like, he's such a
Whoa.
nerd. Because they're also in the
Okay.
same year in high school. How else are you going to be a sibling and be in the same year in high school if you're like a full sibling and be
Makes sense.
that?
Yeah. I get that. Oh, cool.
right?
I missed
Yeah.
that.
So they're
I think
twins.
I was in the middle of, I don't know, finishing something as I started the movie or just getting so into my notes or whatever that I missed that one little line.
Yeah, they're twins. And and Jennifer is kind of the stereotypical late 90s, slutty, bad girl teenager who just wants to hang out with boys and smoke cigarettes.
Oh my
Um,
god. Oh my god, my heart was melting. I was like, "Please seduce me, Reese Witherspoon in 1998." And in
I
a
mean
poodle skirt. Oh yeah.
I mean, low key same. I was like, honestly, like I like had the hots for Betty. I was for Betty. I was
Of
like,
course you like of course you like the old sad people.
Christ, I was like, God damn, MILF material.
Yeah.
So
Betty can get it.
Betty does get it.
Get it, Betty.
So, but back to David and Jennifer, they, they kind of start out, and when they get like sucked into the TV show that that David is obsessed with, and become Bud and Mary Sue, it
Right. From the TV show that they're in, because
yeah,
now they have to play
from the
these
TV show that
characters.
they're in. It is cool because you get to see each of them go through their own character arc and their own character journey while
Hmm.
still consistently being there for each other and consistently being if not supportive, at least like understanding and accepting of something of like,
Hmm.
do you understand
Yeah,
what
I can get behind that. I mean, yeah, there was definitely a part of me that kind of felt like I think for the movie to happen, these two don't necessarily need to be siblings a
Oh,
little bit.
for
I was
sure,
kind
for
of like,
sure.
the movie could happen anyway. It's just it's almost like it's a convenient way for them to kind of like be in front of the television at the same time and to have an antagonistic relationship. They are definitely a pair that is sort of like a more Hollywood traditional like brother and sibling at each other's throats
Yeah.
kind of situation going on. But it
Yeah.
works because they have to kind of like, because they're so different from each other, and they have to learn kind of like parallel and opposite lessons to sort of become who they are. Like
Yeah.
Bud, or what's his name? David.
David.
David has to like learn how to, not push down his feelings and not just let everything be pleasant, and actually engage with the world and, become a leader and become helpful.
Yeah.
And Jennifer needs to stop being such a slutty slut and read a book.
Hey, man. Sluts read too. You
Yeah,
know what I'm
totally.
saying?
Yeah. And sorry, I don't mean to use the word slut in a pejorative sense in any way. I think it's great
No.
that she is very sex positive. But also importantly, she is the one who really starts the transformation because she is not repressed. Oh no, Selkie, what you
Sorry.
doing to
She
my sibling?
just jumped off of me and like totally did a crotch shot. Oh my god.
Man, it is not your day. Bored at master gardening class, uterus is giving you hell, and then Selkie just goes and punches you right in the gut. While all you're doing is being sweet to her.
Yeah, I was just trying to hold her, and then she was like, I want to get down. No! Sweet Jesus. All right. This is a bad night for me. I'm so sorry.
No,
Um,
it's okay. We're keeping it together, man. Yeah.
yes, I think I do like that they, as siblings, have to learn, however you had said it, like separate but parallel lessons, basically.
Yeah.
Um, I think
Yeah.
that was
It's
really cool. And also having, I mean, I think I'm always going to be a fan of a film that has a male and a female lead, like lead
mhm.
actors who are not romantically
Mhm.
involved with each other.
Yeah,
Um,
you don't see it. It's a less seen kind of setup for a movie. It's almost like a buddy
right,
cop comedy, except the cops are the opposite gender and related, and there's no
right,
hijinks with
exactly.
crime.
No, not really.
So really, it's nothing like a buddy cop comedy.
Yeah, it's actually as you started, even when you said it, I was like, in what way? Um,
Maybe they are buddies, or they are people on opposite ends of the spectrum that have to
got
like
it.
start to see eye to eye, and that's about as close as I can get.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I could see that. I really want to
Thank
talk
you.
about this fucking TV repairman
Aw,
who
Don
shows up.
Knotts.
I don't give a fuck who this man is. I hate this character.
What? Mayor,
Who's
this is one of the most
not?
this is one of the most famous television character actors of all time. This is Don Knotts, famous for playing Deputy Barney Fife on the Andy Griffith Show. He
I'm
is TV legend.
I'm not mad at the actor. I'm mad at the character.
Oh, I know. He's a very creepy old man who
I
seems
hate
like
him
he keeps
so
people in his
much.
basement. Yeah.
Yeah, no, as soon as so he's like this, the David and Jennifer like fighting over the remote, it breaks and then like on the door and there's this old man who's like, "Need a TV repair?" and like does this whole thing. And as soon as he comes on the screen and starts talking, I was like, this old man has little boys' bodies like buried under his floorboards. He is an absolute psychopath. He's a complete like controlling narcissist. I hate
Hmm.
him. Everything I said about him, I was like, what is he getting out of this? What a fucking lunatic. He's such a psychopath. Good lord. Oh, good. The psycho is back. What a fuckwad narcissist. This fucking guy. My initial suspicion that he is actually a serial killer is only becoming stronger. He's a total lunatic. I hated him.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah, it's interesting because this makes me think of he's basically like the magical device that helps get them
Yeah.
into the world, right? And like I get why he's a person because he has to talk to them. Um, but it's interesting because I mean, you look back at Gary Ross's previous work like Big, which is basically there's like a magical conceit that grows the kid up into a man. He It's different when the magical conceit is an inanimate object, right? Because like the
Right.
Big, the kid
It's
goes to a
the
coin op,
Mhm,
fortune teller. But it's like a machine,
mhm,
and it's like you will become big or whatever the fuck he says. I don't remember what how they get into it, but somehow, and it's also like the kind of uh or it's a device like in Gremlins where it's like
mhm.
there's this old man in Chinatown and he's got like a box and he doesn't know where it came
Ooh,
from and it just
yeah.
came from all the way back east or whatever, and
And
like, here, have this thing,
I mean,
and you can kind of divorce yourself and just kind of accept it in a way where you're just like, sure, like whatever, we don't know
yeah.
what's going on, we don't know what happened to this inanimate object, maybe it got cursed by a witch or something, who knows. But when it's a guy, like an old guy, a person, it's
Who
harder to divorce yourself from it
he
because now you have the questions of character motivation, like, what the is
why?
this guy a magician? Like, what the hell is going on here? And it just, the whole logic starts to break down when you actually have a person
Right.
doing that magical transformation
He
doohickey.
he has to have so much infrastructure too. Like he has like a uniform. He has a whole bunch of tools. He has a van. Like what do you do day to day? Like are
Yeah,
you just trolling the country for
yeah.
people who know a lot about this one TV show from 1958 and then like sucking them into that world? Also, how? And it was one of those things.
I
that
think it's his literal job to do this.
no, exactly. But then I'm like, but how do you afford your life? We live in a capitalist society. How is this a fungible skill?
Apparently, there's just enough people that are worthy of getting sucked into an old 1950s black and white TV show to keep him afloat for years on end.
Apparently, but I think I definitely as previously stated in my notes, started getting really heated when I went down this line of inquiry in my brain of like, but what? And then I was like, Mare, this is magical realism. You don't have to know why.
Right, exactly.
There doesn't
But
have to be a reason. This
yes,
is the conceit that
but
gets
it
us into the
definitely
film.
raises questions, to be sure.
Yeah, like a lot of them. Like, where are the bodies?
Yeah, all the other people that didn't know enough about of Pleasantville
What
trivia
did
and
you do
just
to them?
yeah, they're
Did
just in
you
his backyard.
did you murder them? Because it sounds like you enjoy keeping people for yourself, sir.
He's a collector.
It really
He's like
was.
Buffalo Bill.
It really was like pale shades of like, what is happening? Anyway, fuck that guy. Not Don Knotts. Not Don Knotts the person. He seems great. I don't know
Don
his
Knotts is
other
great. Yeah,
I don't know
TV
his
legend.
body of work.
And yeah, it makes sense that they would get him to play this old guy because he was in one of the most famous black and white 1950s sort of like Mayberry situations. Mayberry, Pleasantville, very similar kind of places.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very like whatever, leave it to Beaver situation. We had talked about Jeff Daniels a little bit earlier.
Yeah, my
Um
fave.
ah he's my favorite. I love him so much. He plays Bill, who's the so
You know what he's great in? Speed.
I don't know if I've ever seen Speed.
Wow, we should watch it. It's really
Let's
great.
do it.
It's super, super good. I don't know what it will fall into, but yeah, Jeff Daniels is Keanu Reeves's Reeves apostrophe partner in whatever. So he's like
Fuck yeah.
they like defuse a bomb together in the first few minutes, and he's Jeff Daniels, so he's great.
Yeah, he's fantastic. So so kind of the one of the conceits of this world, this Pleasantville world, right, is that because it's a quote unquote TV show, everything sort of happens in the same order like it would on a show, right? You open the door, honey, I'm home. She comes out of the kitchen and says, hi, honey, welcome for whatever, right? And then you have a cocktail, then you have dinner, right? So everything
And I
had
get Yeah, and I get the feeling that that's also the conceit of what the comedy is supposed to be in this world. Like
yes,
even by 1950s standards, like the funny
yes,
thing is that everything kind of happens exactly as it's supposed to, which is not how life works, which is where the quote comedy of the show, and this is the show within the world of the movie, is
right,
happening. It's not
right.
very funny, but like I think that's the idea. That's where the comedy is supposed to
It's
come
it's
from. That
it's like
everything
a
is the same all the time.
it's like a dry satire. Um,
Yeah, or something.
so Bill, Jeff Daniels' character, is the soda shop owner and
Yeah, the soda jerk.
the soda jerk. And so just he's so like um hapless is almost the word I'm looking for, but it's not that. It's like he has this sort of like, oh, okay. I don't know
Like
about
everybody else in
that.
this world, he's naive, to anything being any different than it ever has been.
Yeah, he like Bud works in the soda shop and comes in late one day and he's like, I just kept wiping the counter because normally you do, I wipe the counter and as you set out the napkins or whatever. Um,
Mhm.
And that's also the first
He's like,
uh
I never stopped cleaning the counter because I'm a robot man who doesn't know how to do anything.
but that's also the first Bill is the first instance of, cuz David has been very clear with Jennifer of like, do not fuck up these people's world. Like, if you come in here with your 1998 slutty sassytude, like, we are gonna have a problem, right?
Yeah, he's like, we're gonna have a problem. Don't change this world. The show cannot go on if you
Right.
do
You
anything to mess with it.
stop breaking stuff. But then the first when David and shows up late to work and kind of sees like that's actually the first instance with Bill where you start to see the like, if I don't show up, you can do the next thing. Like Bill is sort of the first domino that starts to fall a little bit because it's the like
That's a good point. Yeah.
you don't have to do the things in a prescribed order. You can
Hmm.
do the next task on your list and it can be different. And Bill is
Yeah.
also just, I mean, honestly, like too pure for this entire world. Like too he's perfect and amazing. Um,
Your future partner.
no, too old. Um, and
He's
male.
probably our age in this movie.
Don't even say that, dude. I know he probably is. He's probably like, I was 37 when I made that. Like, fuck off. Um,
uh,
ugh. Um, but
hilarious.
so I want to talk a little bit more about the like experiencing art and stuff in a little bit. But
Mhm.
Bill has this great line when David is showing him a like a book of art, a book of modern art, and
Mhm.
Bill says, "Where am I gonna see colors like that?" And it's just so like heartbreaking of like anywhere you want, buddy. Like
Just
that's
look around you. They're popping up everywhere, man. Just have a look at an apple.
yeah, he also has like an existential crisis about like cheeseburgers that I found highly relatable. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I have existential crises about cheeseburgers all the time.
I mean, yeah, they
Welcome
crop
to
up.
America.
They crop up sometimes.
Mhm.
But anyway, Bill
Yeah.
is a delightful character and is a great um and it's great that he is kind of that first domino because he's not a kid, like he's an adult. And
Mhm.
it kind of starts that train of like it's not just, like the youth that are having these experiences or are changing in these ways. Like this can happen to anybody. Like anybody, you're never too
Mhm.
old to experience these things or to rethink your life or reevaluate what you find important or whatever.
Yeah, this is definitely a movie where I think the characters start to sell most of everything good that happens in this movie. And yeah,
Yeah.
Bill is clearly seems like somebody who is very close to Gary Ross's heart. He seems like somebody who he knew this kind of person or is this kind of person in some way. I
Yeah.
mean, every character when you're writing is a version of you, I suppose, but like yeah, it's and it is the artist, right? He's the metaphor maybe for the sort of like the artist within us who is trying to get out, who has the kind of like normal job, the sort of like blue
Yeah.
collar, like serve the people job, but who really has something to service in himself and through his experiences in this movie, he gets to a place where he can do that, where he actually gets to be it. And he's, even though he is the most mild mannered, he becomes one of the more braver of the older white men. Because all the
Yeah.
other, if I wrote an essay about this movie, it would be
My
called
God.
Old White Men in the Bowling Alley, an essay on America. Because, like,
Ugh.
that,
Ugh. I actually
So
all
it's
of my
cool that he, as the older unmarried guy, is one of the people who kind of like sees the difference, and he wants to be an artist. So like that changes. That
yeah.
he's a perfect person to have that change because he, in some ways, doesn't have the same kind of like patriarchal needs as the other men in the town.
And it's also cool to see Bill be a very mild-mannered man who never gets
Who can
angry.
get it? Hmm.
He can also absolutely get it with hottie patati mommy over here.
Hmm. Joan
Um,
Allen is the
Joan
actress's
Allen.
name.
Joan
Betty.
Allen. God damn, she's so hot.
How does she end up falling for the two saddest looking men in the
I
entire
don't
fucking town?
know. I don't know. William
Well,
H. Macy and
William H.
Jeff
Macy
Daniels.
is such a saggy sack of potatoes, and Jeff Daniels also has like jowls for days. He's just like, "Wah," and this was like before he was really very old. So I don't know.
It's because Betty falls in love with the soul, not the face.
Good call.
Thank
Yes.
you. That's what I'm gonna say because it genuinely makes no sense if you have eyes. But I also love that Bill is somebody that is very mild mannered. He is very kind. He never raises his voice. Bad things happen to him, but he never rises to the challenge. And yet, he is a very, in his own quiet way, is a revolutionary and is a subversive figure and is sort of like a quote unquote political dissident. And
Hmm.
I always love that juxtaposition too of like you don't have to necessarily be a firebrand to enact change. There's a million ways to be in this world.
True. He speaks through his art, if
He
you will.
speaks through his art. He does.
Yes. I will say it is, yes, and I'm happy that he is how he is. It's a perfect sort of like simplified metaphor for like what a lot of people go through when they have something in them that they're trying to get out. I also think that it's like the most sort of like asinine thing for somebody to be like, I've always wanted to be a paint. That's like such a Hollywood thing of like, oh, the trapped artist and he's always wanted to paint, and I don't know. But it's
Yeah,
totally fine. It works really well for this movie specifically because the
exactly.
whole world is turning to color, so it makes sense that you have a character who wants to be a painter
It
because
wouldn't
painters try to capture the color of the world.
it wouldn't have made sense if he was like, I've always wanted to be a weaver and make rugs or something. Like it's just like isn't it? It's just like
He
not
makes
the
this
same.
incredible tapestry of like a nude Betty. Like, check out this Navajo rug I created.
Hold on, let me
Uh,
get my loom.
oh,
Um,
a naked lady tapestry. Love it.
yes.
Can
But
I take
yeah.
a second too to just gush on Jeff Daniels and all actors for a moment?
Wait. Yes, and I would say I just listened to the episode of the podcast Talk Easy that had
Mhm.
Jeff Daniels on it. It was from a while ago. It's fucking fantastic. If you like Jeff Daniels, you should listen to that podcast episode. It's great.
Ooh,
Continue. Keep
I
going.
do. I do like Jeff Daniels. Well, this is just to say that like I feel like I don't know if I've said this on the podcast before. I'm sure I have because it's a thing I keep bringing up, but like, I just want to say again that like what actors do, I don't know if you would call what they do underrated, but like I don't think people appreciate like what they're capable of because like I don't know, I just, as a young person, I think you look at the what these people do and you're just like "Pff," it's just like saying lines like I could do that,
They're just
But
walking around in costumes saying shit.
yeah, which honestly is like what John Hamm has said, like made him think he could be a good actor. He's like, I don't know, you just like put on other clothes and like say some lines. It doesn't seem that hard. So that's a very John Hamm kind of way to look at the
It's a
world.
very Midwestern thought.
Yeah. But it struck me again in the scene where so throughout the course of the movie, Betty,
The
uh,
mom, the, like,
the
mom
mom of the
character.
siblings, and yeah, whose husband is played by William H Macy, whose name is George, I believe.
George.
Um, she's going through her existential crisis for reasons
Mhm.
that we will also jump back to. But she's turning to color, and she is having a hard time because she is still like, how do I fit in? What do I do? And she goes to the diner and sees Bill's paintings, and they start to have this really emotional moment because she's put gray makeup on to kind of hide the fact that she's
Yeah,
turned to color.
because her makeup is still all in grayscale, and so she's essentially, like, putting on foundation, but it's covering up the fact that she is in color. It's a great effect. I've
Exactly.
always loved that.
Yeah, it's very cool, and I'd love to know how they did that one. I kind of know how they did most of the other ones, but that one I was like, "Oh, who would do that?"
That one trips me up.
Yeah. Um, but anyway, so they have this incredibly emotional scene where she cries looking at a painting of his, and she wipes it off and reveals color underneath, and he says, "It's okay," and he sort of like wipes it off with her, and it's just it's a well shot, it's a well executed emotional love scene. It's like a sparking of a love, and also of kind of like a deep hurt in both of them that they are kind of exposing as these older people in this world.
Mhm.
And I just want to like remind people that like the the emotional gist of this scene is that like she is in black and white and he is in color, and she is revealing her color, but in the real world as they're shooting this thing, they're both in color. They are both like
Yeah.
normal people, and these two actors are, and he's basically just wiping water on her face probably, and like these actors bring such gravitas and like such imagination to believe that they are in this world where this is happening. Because remember, in their world, like in the real world where they're acting, they just look like normal people to each
Yeah.
other.
They
So
just look
like,
exactly like how you look. Like,
yeah. So it's I don't know. Every time something like that happens, I'm just always sort of gobsmacked by how what a good actor is able to do and how they're able to bring that to the screen, for these things that people imagine, and they have to bring it to life. It's not as easy as it looks. And
there
Jeff Daniels is one of the best, and as is
uh,
for all the purposes of this scene, Joan Allen as well. This is just a very cool scene, and
there was I was,
makes me love movies. That kind of stuff. It's like this is all make believe, but somehow they made you feel like it was real.
there's a I was watching an interview with Jason Segel. I was watching some, like, actors on actor, like, it was an seemingly odd pairing. It was Ali Wong and Jason Segel talking.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
which
That would be
init
interesting.
initially I was
Angry tiny woman, and
the hugest man that's ever lived.
the hugest, most gentle giant on the planet.
Accurate. But it was really interesting, um, what so they were talking Ali Wong at the time. Ali Wong had just shot the television show Beef, and Jason Segel had just
Which is
finished,
great.
which
I
is
love that show.
fantastic, and Jason Segel had just finished the first season of Shrinking,
Also great.
which is
Go
also
watch.
great. And it was actually really interesting, and Jason Segel said something along the lines of, like, someone that he knows or a friend of his or something said something to the effect of, art is an act of self-exploration in front of an audience, in the parlance of acting, right? Like, the
Oh
art,
yeah, I must have heard him
you
say this. That rings a bell. But
something,
yeah,
yeah, and it was an interesting way to think about it, because I was like,
I
again,
think it was the GQ interview he did.
oh, was it a GQ interview he did? Okay,
I
whatever.
think so. Yeah.
Still, you should go watch the one with his thing with Ali Wong, because it was, like, actually really fantastic.
Nice.
And it's interesting because I think it is true, that we can look at actors and go, like, okay, you're just walking around and in different people's clothes and whatever. And a really good actor always is bringing some part of their, like, deepest humanity to roles. And no matter what, you're brain doesn't know the difference, right?
Hmm.
So if you are acting, quote unquote, acting that way, somehow you have to believe it. You have
Hmm.
to believe that in like the depths of your soul. And that is a pretty intense thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just it's a great scene, and it is really sweet, especially to see that kind of hurt and melancholy, and also the initial spark of, oh, I'm seeing a thing in you that I recognize in myself moment between two people who are kind of, older, kind of into their lives, haven't really gotten what they wanted out of it. So, yeah, it's
Yes.
a great
There's some
scene.
heartbreak there.
There is some heartbreak in different ways, and I think those are the kind of moments that I think make this 2-hour long film not feel long and arduous and like, oh my god, like just get on with it.
Again, yeah, no, the movie's at its best in those moments where things
Yeah.
are turning to color and where you're kind of caught up in the moment of beauty, which is, the metaphor of things turning from black and white to color is always about something sort of like exciting or beautiful happening, and I do think it's in those moments where it really gets to have its cake and eat it too, where it like uses
Mhm.
this good visual metaphor, but they also find ways to make those particular scenes. They really sell the emotionality of those scenes, and I think that's where the movie has its best moments, in those kinds of sections, especially that one with
Yeah.
um, Bill and Betty definitely kind of like caught me, and there's a few other ones that come to mind. But yeah, that's where the movie's at its best. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the themes that this movie has to offer in a colorful world that was once black and white, but now it's changed. So come
Ooh.
back, join us momentarily. And we're back. Welcome back, everybody. Now it's time to talk about some things. I think we're gonna get into some of the themes, some of the things about this movie. Interesting plot points and things that I think are brought up. Something I thought was interesting about this movie. It's interesting that the movie opens with a title card that says "Once Upon a Time." I
I
think we're
know.
supposed to imagine that this is supposed to be kind of like a fairy tale or a morality tale, maybe something like that.
I I think it goes back to the thing of like magical realism, fairy tale, something where it's like, is any of this actually happening? I don't know. Like you're saying once upon a
Mhm.
time, like the fuck,
Yeah, it
you
makes you
know?
think that the TV repairman is maybe supposed to be kind of like a fairy godmother, but like mean, like a
Scary
bad fairy godfather
fucking
person.
scary serial killer.
Yeah. Um, but so in thinking of it as kind of like a parable or a fable or a fairy tale, something along those lines, I will say that I think this movie is doing an interesting thing, sort of creating a fairy tale about a sort of like conservative thinking mindset, or you could even possibly
Mhm.
say about sort of like a fascist mind world view, and like taking over under the ruse of pleasantness,
Yeah.
because to catch anybody else up who hasn't actually watched this movie the way that we did, because that's what we do on this podcast, we watch movies and
That's
talk
what we
about
do.
them.
We do it every week.
But yeah, once everybody starts turning to color, there are people in the town who are remaining black and white and want to stay that way. Mainly, it tends
Mhm.
to be the old men at the barbershop and the bowling alley, kind of led by the mayor, who aren't happy that their wives aren't cooking dinner for them anymore. They're scared
Mhm.
that their kids are like doing this thing called sex now. And they're like, what's going on? And they're
What
also
even is that?
Oh, and also the books are getting filled in with with actual book stuff
Yeah.
instead of just blank pages, which it was before. So people are
Yeah.
not happy about newfound creation and exchange of knowledge and ideas and the free thinking and freedom of speech and things
And
like that.
surprisingly, the old white men started and then radicalize a bunch of hateful young white men uh, to be their
Yep.
little Nazi youth fuckheads.
Hooray, incels. I mean, not hooray, incels. Incels can go F themselves. Well, I mean, yes.
But they can't, though. They can't. They're involuntarily celibate, so they can't fuck themselves or anyone else. That's
Yes.
the whole thing. That's their culture.
Yes, it's true. Honestly, to be fair, I think that as a man, I do whatever. Now I'll get serious for a second. I do want to just say that, like, I think that there are many people getting led down the wrong path, and I think that there are people who aren't past like redemption, and I think that you
100%.
just need to know that, like, being a man does not equal subjugating women. In fact,
No.
being a strong man means including other people in your life and your
Yes.
decision making process.
Yes.
And yes, it is very hard to find people to have sex with, but that's a different issue. And you
It's
can
hard
still be
for
a good
me.
person, right?
It's hard for me to find people to have sex with. I'm not fucking going on message boards and being like, you shouldn't have the right to have an abortion. Like, fucking Jesus, calm down, guys. Like,
Yeah. There's a couple of leaps of logic there that
there's
are worth talking
several.
about. If you're a
There's
person out
several.
there, know that I'm happy to talk to you and try to find common ground. But
Please, like, please come back. Please come back. Come back.
exactly,
Come back.
exactly. Like, yeah.
We would love to have you over here. Please come back. You're not past redemption. Just please.
You know who doesn't find it hard to find anybody to have sex with is fucking Reese Witherspoon.
Oh my
Little
god, this girl.
cat on
Um,
a hot tin roof over here. Is
she
that what that phrase means? I've never seen Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and I don't know what it's
I
about. But I get this image of,
don't.
like, a cat who's just, like, horny and angry and hot and is just like, grrr. That's my first thought.
Is that what your first thought is when you think about hypersexuality? A cat?
No, it's no. It's my first thought when I hear the phrase "cat on a hot tin roof," the
Oh,
famous play and movie.
okay. No, I know that, but I was like, what?
A couple of leaps of logic, and this guy's
I know. I was like, I want to talk about leaps in logic. Don't start fucking cats. So
Oh,
I
we were
did.
talking
What?
about fairy tales and politics. Unless you were going to talk about Reese Witherspoon.
I was just going to start talking about sexuality and the human experience.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I'm just to wrap my thoughts up about the fairy tale and politics thing. I think that really, I just kind of feel like that would have, while it was good, and I think that I think is really the gist of the whole movie, is sort of like making this fairy tale about fascist, governments. I kind of feel like it might have been solidified a little bit more if we explored the actual relationships between the main characters more,
Yeah.
like, and how a sort of repressive regime actually, like, affects their relationships, because it affects everybody individually, but it doesn't it start to, like, everybody who's good is basically on the same side, but I don't know, it would be more interesting to me if it caused conflict within people and they had to come to get, like, all the people who turned to color had to also start to, like, band together to fight it. I don't know. At the end of the day, it's sort of like it's a black and white TV show. Like, shit gets real, but also you always feel like it's kind of gonna be okay. So, like, I don't know.
Yeah. I
It
think
just
you
didn't
do.
hit as hard as maybe it could have with
I
the
do
sort of
think.
serious subject matter that it's trying to get across.
I think you get some of that in George and Betty's relationship
That's true.
when she is kind of coming to terms with, like, I don't want the world that you're offering anymore.
Yeah.
And
It's
I
like
have to
somebody who's been asleep for a long time suddenly waking up and being like, wait, what the
wait,
heck
what?
happened
And
while I was in this coma?
yeah, and I think that it does have that sense to it in their conflict in their uh interplay kind of in that moment, as Betty is like, I'm not I'm more than your expectation of me, right? And Bill is kind of like, no, but the expectation, I like
Yeah,
that.
totally.
I like the expectation. There is some of that, but I agree that I think it could have potentially been pushed a little farther in
Hmm.
in other in other characters' relationships. But they kind of have the most like developed sort of um
Yeah, because you
you
think
know,
about it, like the kids, David and Jennifer, don't actually know the people who are supposed to be their parents, so they don't really. So I
right.
get it. They don't really have a relationship with them that can be separate. Like they become friends as they act like they're kids, but
Right.
yeah,
But they
I don't
don't
know. It's
have
just
that same
interesting.
yeah, they don't
Hmm.
have that same bond.
Yeah. And interesting you should bring up Betty because I think I think that's a perfect segue to talk about, the sexy stuff because Betty is one of the
Yes.
characters who sort of comes online and comes into color by,
Coming.
doing a little diddle down there, don't I mean? Follow-up question.
Uh,
Follow-up.
follow
You
up.
gonna dingle the dangle?
You gonna flick that bean?
Hey, hey, Betty. Hey, Betty, what you flicking down there?
Hey, Betty. Hey,
You
Betty.
want to jingle a jangle?
Hey, Betty. You want a flippy floppy in the biffy bath? You want to? You know what I'm saying? This is only funny to us. Um,
It's also great. It's so good. I'm so glad that Reese Witherspoon's character is not the Betty's actual child because,
dude,
like, a daughter
dude.
telling her mother how to Jill off for the first time would be the most horrifying, awkward
I
conversation. I can't imagine trying to describe to
I
my father how to jack off. I'd be like,
it makes me want to vomit.
that is the correct response.
So so I did want to talk about Jennifer and Betty especially, but their kind of relationship to sexuality and sex in general, because Jennifer is coming into this very
Jennifer's body. You're welcome.
I would like to return that gift. No, thank you. No, thank you.
Send it back. Do you have a gift receipt? Please
Return to sender. Thank you so
give it
much.
to me. There's a barcode. You still read the barcode on that gift receipt.
Scan it and it's done. So Jennifer is in this world of, 50s quote unquote traditional American values, morality, whatever, like girls are so sweet and boys are sports stars, and
Hmm.
that's sort of that's the end of the character, right? That's the
Right.
box that you're in,
Yeah.
period, full stop. And Jennifer kind of is
Oh, we didn't even get to talk about Skip, played by Paul Walker, who is dead, unfortunately, from the
Paul
Fast and
Walker,
the
I
Furious.
know. Did he
Dad.
die making the Fast and the Furious?
No, he wasn't making the Fast and the
Oh,
Furious. He just had a car accident because he liked driving cars real fast. I mean, I don't know if
that's
that was the reason. He did, but he also died in a car accident. And yeah, it's
that's very
sad. Somebody
sad.
that I know, somebody that Rachel knows was a stunt coordinator who worked with him and he had plans to like make a whole movie with him and
Oh
yeah,
my god.
I
Wow.
know. He sounds like he was a really actually for a hot Hollywood guy, it sounds like he was actually a really sweet dude and he was actually like really good to the people around him. So
That's
sad to know that he
that
passed in
is
that way.
sad. He plays Skip in this film, that like hottie beefcake, Hottie
Yes,
Totterson.
Jennifer's first conquest. Well, really her only conquest within the world of Pleasantville, I suppose,
Within
as
the
far as
world
I
of
know.
Pleasantville. Within the world of
Mhm.
Pleasantville. But yeah, so Jennifer's whole world up to this point, when she's in her like current time period, has kind of been about like getting, or the kind of character that she's set up to be has been about getting boys to notice her,
Mhm.
using sex and sexuality as her like primary kind of tokens, her primary like way that she finds power and purpose and whatever, right? Like She's a
'Cause everybody deals with trauma differently.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, David and Jennifer's parents are
Oh, yeah, they're
Splitsville, and they seem to
Splitsville.
be kind of like dealing with it at home in healthy and or unhealthy ways. David seems to be ensconcing himself in old television, and Jennifer seems to be trying to hook up with the boys.
Be fucking. Jennifer be
Be
fucking.
Jennifer is fucking all the time.
Jennifer is fucking out of time.
She's going
So
downtown.
she's going downtown. So that is how she knows to gain power, influence, assert herself in the world,
Mhm.
right? And so
Yeah.
when she brings that to Pleasantville, obviously Skip's mind is blown and he's like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me, when he's like gone from 6 to midnight. And she's like, yeah, no, that's fine. And it just like, it's also, again, what a bit of little, just like, I will say that was one part that I did actually laugh in the movie, is when they're driving home after like Jennifer and Skip have sex for the first time, and Skip is
Um,
just like completely in a different world. Like,
yeah, he's like, I have become a man.
he's just like,
It's time for me to conquer cities.
I have experienced transcendence. I'm no longer of this world. Um,
I also laughed when similar to that. I actually laughed when they because I was so impressed when David shows up in the high school at first, and then they have that one shot that I don't think they could have done with CGI, as far as I know, where they have all of the dudes swish baskets at the
yes,
same time. And I was
yeah,
like, that's super impressive. Like
it is
eight or nine dudes just like getting
sinking basket.
just sinking basketballs all like one after the other. I was like, that in one shot. I was like, that's impressive. So then after Skip, like the next day, Skip tells them all about his sexual escapades, and they are also sort of waking up, and they all simultaneously completely miss all the baskets. I laughed at that too. I was like, that's a pretty good gag. That's funny.
That's pretty funny. But so Jennifer is opening up other kids' minds to the possibility of sex and sexuality and like bodily pleasure and bodily
Mhm.
experiences in a way, and that starts to change people into color, and that kind of is that physical pleasure is what opens people's eyes, right, to this greater world. And
Mhm.
Betty, the mom, is like
Mhm.
interested in sex, and she thinks, I know who the best person to talk to about my own middle-aged budding sexuality is my daughter. Because let's
To
not
be
forget.
fair, to be
Wait,
fair, she
wait.
brings it up first and says blah blah
I
blah
know.
sex, and then Betty is like, "What is sex?" Like, oh, now we're in a whole definition
Oh no.
situation. All
That is
right.
the point. That is the point. Similar to the conversation like 10 years ago when you and I were joking around and I made a joke about butt stuff, and then our mother said, "What's butt stuff?" And both of us left the room so quickly that it was like a Wile E. Coyote cartoon where there was like an Evan and Mary dust cloud.
Yeah, like I don't want to talk about this.
Like, never mind. No, 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 no.
Oh my god.
So
Yeah, not talking about it.
we're not talking about it
Pew.
because I
Well,
mean, yes,
testament to
or
Jennifer, the character Jennifer, to just be like, you know what? Even this person who's my fake mom, fuck it. I'm letting everybody know what's
like
up.
she has to know what's up too. It's still very disturbing because Betty does think that that is her daughter and is like, this is an appropriate person to ask this question to. So like that's its own thing. But
I'm sorry. I'm still laughing about what is butt stuff. Oh, man. Uh, don't ask your children what butt stuff
Marta,
is.
use your imagination.
you can figure it out if you try hard enough, I
You can figure
promise.
it out, like, pick up on the context, Mom. Come on.
Yeah. This in Pleasantville, there is a time before Wikipedia, so nobody can just look this shit up. They just
I know.
have to ask people.
So it's cool because when Betty kind of, like, quite literally comes online as a technicolor person, you're welcome. Is
Nice.
she's masturbating in a bathtub, and, like, that is sort of that physical experience opens her up. And I think, there's something to be said for, like, I would hope, that, though I know this is absolutely not the case often,
Mhm.
but I would hope that most people's first sexual experience is one that is transformative and opens you up to a new type of physical experience, right? Obviously,
I
that's
hope
not always the case.
I
Sexual
hope
violence
you
is a problem.
yes. I hope that all of you see the wallpaper, the bathroom wallpaper coming to
Yeah,
life around you.
I do
I hope
too.
you set the front yard tree on fire, which is
What she
which
does,
is what happens, which is what Betty must be a powerful motherfucker, you know what I'm saying?
I in my notes, I think I wrote, talk about a burning bush.
Grown. All right, that was pretty good. If I gave you a high five for the last one, then that would definitely deserves it as well.
Um,
Pew
so,
pew.
but then you kind of see this throughout a lot of people, that these pleasurable physical experiences are the thing that kind of bring them into being in color.
Mhm.
But then Jennifer herself is like, I don't get why I'm still in black and white. Like, I've had way more sex than all of these other kids. Like, what the fuck?
Mhm. Yeah.
And it is only when she kind of realigns her own sense of self to be like, yeah, sex is amazing and I love it and it's great, but also, like, cultivating my own interests is a thing that is what is opening me up to new experiences of reading and being kind of introspective and considering her
Mhm.
own wants and desires more than just beyond the physical. So it's cool
Yeah.
that you get those of varying degree, right? So it's not just like you fuck and then you see color. It really
Right, that'd be
is.
too simple.
I'd
Mhm.
be too simple. It's more about whatever the thing is that is a big emotional experience, a big physical experience. Those are what kind of bring you online as
Mhm.
a human, as a person.
Yeah, if you think of it in kind of like a Carl Jung kind of way, it's sort of like it's sort of like when people engage with their shadow persona, when people begin to make an attempt at the experience that they've been repressing in their lives, that's when
Mhm.
they start to gain some kind of consciousness. And
Yeah.
the television characters I'd argue that they do gain consciousness because
Mhm.
before having those experiences, they are kind of on a loop, so to speak, of like
Yeah.
daily activity that is just pleasant, right? And yeah, I think it's a very it's nice that they made that point, and it's also kind of nice. I mean, I'll give the movie credit here that they never really spell that aspect out for
No.
you. Like, they
No.
never spell it out like the reason that people are turning to color is because they are engaging with their
But you
emotional
see
complexity
that.
some more. But you don't have to explain it because it's such a experience of being alive. A, you don't really need to have it explained, and B, the visual metaphor is a much more succinct way of get and visceral way of getting that across. And I will give the movie credit for that aspect because it's like
Absolutely.
because like it's nice when a movie, especially this thing that I'm railing against these days, as you
I
heard me
know.
rant about last season, where it's like, let's explain everything that's going on with words. It's like, well, it's nice that Pleasantville didn't feel the need to actually go there. They're like, if you're watching the movie, you get it. You like
Yeah,
you
you
get that
see.
emotional things are happening and the color is happening, and like it's like when you really think about it logically, like nothing like the tree burning because Betty is masturbating has happened before
Right,
and doesn't
exactly.
happen since. It kind of doesn't make logical sense. It's not about the tree. The tree gets color, but it's also not like the tree just got color. The tree literally caught
Like,
on fire,
caught on
and
fire.
nothing like that happens anymore. But like you don't really question the logic of it because to the viewer, like, it makes sense. The visual language has
It's
given you the understanding that like something fiery has happened and it has affected the world, which is what goes on throughout
yeah,
the rest of the
it's
movie, you know?
the whole movie is kind of linking the visuals with an emotion or like with an emotional response, and I think
Mhm.
that is very well handled. The same thing kind of happens when you had mentioned one of the things that Jennifer says kind of early in the film to David is like there aren't even words in the books. Like there's titles, but there's nothing in them, right? There's
Mhm.
nothing in here. As if, whoever created the show was like, and then there's a copy of Catcher in the Rye, but didn't like explain what Catcher in the Rye was, and so they never read it, right? Um,
Mhm.
or so there's no books. But then when as people are starting to wake up and and David and Jennifer are kind of recounting these books, right? And saying like, "Oh yeah, I remember Huck Finn," or like, "Oh, I remember this book."
Mhm.
The books start filling themselves in, seemingly by magic or whatever. Um
Yeah.
which
That's
I
a
think is
magical world,
it's
you
a
know.
magical world, and I think it's
Creepy old
another.
men in vans are sending children into television sets, so anything can
Yeah,
happen.
anything can happen in this world. Um, but I think that's another cool kind of just conceit of it's not just like I said, it's not just emotions, it's not just pleasure and sex and those things that can wake you up, it's also knowledge. It's also art. It's also
The
like anything that can create an experience that you've never had
Yeah,
is
and I
is the thing that
yeah.
turns you on, for lack of a
Yeah,
better
yeah,
way.
and I think and honestly, I think that the movie does, I'm just thinking about this now, but I think the movie does a good job of kind of going up the ladder of, like, uh
Chakras.
chakras, yeah, just like
Chakras?
evolutionary like the evolution of consciousness, because it does
Yeah.
start at the base in your sacral area, right? Because it's like
Mhm.
it's like the most biological imperative, right? And then it starts to move up into things that are more like, anger or love, and then it starts to become about knowledge and learning and getting to understand
Yeah.
the world in a more holistic manner. So like it is, yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but it's cool that the movie finds a way to take the journey of the world of the town of Pleasantville gaining knowledge through a kind of evolution that we
Mhm.
understand as humans, because it kind of goes from the sort of like the base level, the most basic form of like waking up and coming online, the biological imperative to like procreate and kind of have
Yeah.
that sensual thing,
Yeah,
and
through
then
the
moving up
self,
into other
compassion.
emotions and like
Yeah.
expression, and then into kind of like gaining knowledge about the world. And
Yeah.
when the books
And
start coming alive, and that's what really starts to like, once that knowledge is there, that's when people start to really go off the rails, and the old
yeah.
bowling alley people start to get real angry.
Yeah, it's also cool that when David does finally become in color, it's because he is standing up for his mom, and he is standing up for the right thing, and he sort of
Yeah, I
he
can
he
I
experiences like intense anger and, like, takes action,
Yeah.
but it's not anger for, like, anger and violence's sake. It's because it's like, you're hurting someone that I care about. I'm defending someone. This is important to me. Like, it's sort of it's sort of the culmination of his story arc of going from somebody who is, like, very shy and very retiring to being somebody who is a leader and knows what his morals are and can help kind of put a voice to people that feel powerless.
Totally. Yeah, no, as a person, as a man, as a person who has not always who hasn't been quick to anger in my life and who has had problems with sort of connecting with those kinds of emotions, and the older you get and the more self-knowledge you gain, the more you understand about that. I appreciated that story in particular. I was like, oh,
Mhm.
that's cool that that is his arc, because I think that is what a lot of obviously it's what a lot of people go through, but I think there is a
Yeah.
certain kind of man who goes through that in their life where they're like, oh, I have to like not be so retiring. Anger isn't necessarily a bad thing. Your anger kind of tells you where your what the things that you don't want to stand for are, and
Yeah.
it's okay to engage with that anger when it is in service of a righteous cause,
And
even if it's not in service of a righteous cause, even if it's just to express yourself, which is its
yeah.
own
And
form of a righteous cause, I suppose.
well, and it's
You're
also
doing good by the universe by letting the universe know what you're angry about.
yeah, and that scene, especially with David, is juxtaposed to the kind of Nazi youth fuckers
Hmm.
who are like his same age and his
Who
peer
want to
group
repress the knowledge. Yeah.
who are also angry, but
Hmm.
they it's the difference of continual seething anger with no real reason and no real purpose that just ends up being violence
Hmm.
versus anger that is the call to action but is not a place that you live, right? It is a feeling you
Yeah.
can access, and
Hmm.
it's the catalyst for action, but it's
Hmm.
not the action itself. It's not
Yeah.
where you live, right? Which I think is also kind of an interesting difference just in terms of, the it can be so easy to be like, "Oh, all men are angry and violent." And it's like, "No,
Hmm.
all people of anybody can be angry and violent all the time. It's about but it's we all feel anger, but it's
Yeah.
about how you use it and
Yeah.
how you dwell in it, how long you dwell in it, right? Of
Yeah.
are you letting it drive the car, or are you letting it be like the spark in the ignition?"
Totally. It's all shades of gray when it comes to emotion.
Nah.
Black and white stuff, because that's what this movie is. Um mm,
Oh, wait. You had some stuff. I want to yell about this for a while.
mhm.
You had a little note on racial stuff.
Yes. Okay. So this is
So
actually
I
okay. So
have
this is a
so
good
many thoughts.
segue.
I have so many thoughts because this is again kind of what we're talking about in terms of like, are you letting anger drive the car? Are you letting it spark the ignition?
That's what I was okay, before we jump into this,
But
yes, I
yeah.
was just gonna say that I think that there's, some of the stuff I've been engaging with lately when it comes to emotional education and things like that. Um, there's a lot of there's research and different psychologists online who are saying that like the emotion that like when you feel an emotion when or a there's also kind of like a really interesting distinction between feelings and emotions,
Mm,
which I can't remember right now, but like, a feeling is like momentary. Emotions kind of maybe
yeah,
are a little deeper if you want to, make a distinction about that.
sure.
But when you feel something, when you feel a spark of anger or sadness or
Joy.
disappointment or joy. Joy, true, yes. But specifically when you're dealing with difficult emotions,
Sure.
the physical element of that emotion, like what's actually happening physiologically within your body, the chemicals that are getting released in your brain, the feeling that you feel in your body, lasts about 60 to 90 seconds is about as long as that
Yeah.
occurs. Maybe I'm getting the number wrong, but it's short.
Short.
You get a spurt of it. And after that, it's up to your own mind whether you hold on to it or not, whether you
Mhm.
make it a point of resentment, because resentment is not necessarily a feeling. It's because a feeling is something that occurs and will
Mm.
kind of calm down once your nervous system, again,
Resets or whatever, but, like,
right.
resentment can be, like, anger that you have decided to hang on to for a long time, or
Exactly. And you
yeah.
and you
I like what
have
you
an
said.
active choice in those moments to sort of like, express something with that anger and do something with it, and
Mhm.
or if you decide to do something constructive with it anyway, because the people who are burning books are doing something with their anger too, but they are doing something that's destructive. They're
Right.
holding on to this feeling that like
Mm.
we're not okay and things are going to happen. So anyway, that whole scene made me think about that, and it also made me think like, especially when the guys were coming up to the girl and they were burning the books. I was like, oh man, this movie's laying
It's
it on real thick right now.
They were like, "They're Nazis, you see, they're
Yeah.
Nazis." Um,
Burning books is a scene of burning a giant pile of
it's
burning books. There is no quicker way to visually denote Nazis than that
I mean, just fascism in general, but
in
so
a Hollywood movie,
in
anyway.
a Hollywood movie. But so I also kind of wanted to talk about the racial aspect of this film.
Yes, they
So
clearly lean on it at a particular moment, and I think that it is. They don't make it the entire central argument of the movie, which I think is to
Mhm.
the movie's detriment. Um,
I would I yeah, okay, so let's just say this entire cast, every single person in this film is white. And I mean
Quiet.
white. They are
Yep.
all white.
Quiet as a polar bear in a snowstorm.
Yeah. And on okay, so here's the thing, right? Because as people are going from black and white and becoming colorized, it was certainly at the top of my mind. I think I wrote it in my notes. Evan did too. Both of us kind of were
Yeah.
just like,
I was
"Fuck, are
like,
you
are
gonna
they
say
gonna
it?
say it?
Are
Are
you
they
gonna
gonna
say
say it?
it?"
Are they gonna say like it's the damn coloreds or something like that? Like I
They
was like, they've
where it
got to.
where
I was
it
like, I
came,
hope they don't. It's so obvious that I hope they just ignore it, you
but
know?
it's when one of the fuckheads is talking to David and he says something about his colored girlfriend. And I
Right.
was like, "Ba-dum bum bum, there it is." Um,
You know, I knew it. I just fucking knew it. I
I was
knew they
like,
were gonna
"I
do it.
fucking knew it. I fucking knew you were gonna do it in this 1998 film with all white people in it. You had to take it
Yeah.
there, didn't you?" So, okay,
Back when
so
we made metaphorical movies about racial discrimination, but only used white people to sell the idea because it was the
the 90s.
90s.
And
Yeah, it's
okay, so
true. It was the
on
90s.
so on the one hand, I was like, if they had been slightly more intentional about it, perhaps, I was like, I could see the way in which having an all white cast could have been very intentional,
Mhm.
as in, like, this is not something we as a modern day viewer would not look at it and go, there's a racial disparity between any of these characters, right? And so then that kind of becomes so then being in black and white or being colorized
Mhm.
is the does become kind of that, like, metaphor of, like, see, even if you are the same quote unquote race, you could still, like, hate can still live. which I think is
Totally.
kind of the way that it was going, but it didn't nail it. Um, and it just sort of
No.
that aspect of it, I was like, "I see where you're going,"
Mhm.
and you didn't really stick the landing on it,
Well,
and
to
because
me
they didn't, it rang false that it was an all-white cast. You know what I mean?
totally. Yeah, to me, honestly, it just speaks to more of like a tone deafness, where it's like, oh, these people were in black and white and they are conservative people. They hold quote unquote white values, right? And
Right,
white and black are social constructions because those
because
types
they
of distinctions among people did not exist before we had America and the slave trade and all that. It was created as to make a system of control occur, right?
Oh,
So,
yeah, no, Christianity created
back.
race, like, that's a not a no one else had that idea
Oh,
before.
Christianity. Okay.
I mean,
But
the slave trade, but, like, they justified it through Christianity and, like, through the lens
oh,
of
I
Christianity
see
to
what you're getting.
justify it, and, like, that is what created it
Yeah.
as a
Um,
social construct.
yes. So I can see um like it seems like such an obvious thing to try to, and especially because this is a movie more probably made by a boomer, right? Like I think this guy is 50, baby
Duh!
boomer. And I don't want to be one of the people who like throws shade at all the baby boomers because then we're doing the thing that they get mad at us
No.
for. So I'm like, it's fine. But I will say that there is a specific kind of 90s tone deafness to that thing
Mm,
in particular, right? Where it's like,
mhm.
okay, we've created this world where there is a repressive regime of people in a conservative mindset, and people are coming online and becoming more really the only way that they're becoming radical is in engaging with their feelings and with their desires, and they're like
Yeah,
engaging with life in a way that normal people do, right? So, of course, the natural thing to do when the place that your story is going is to make it an allegory
sure,
about the civil rights movement, right? Because that
sure.
is maybe the most common story of this in the public consciousness. It's definitely at the time in the 90s, like the 60s was not that long ago.
I mean, the Civil
Um,
Rights Act was signed 30 years before this movie came out.
yeah,
30
38, 30.
or
No,
34 years.
35 or something like that.
Yeah, but it was, like,
Help me out. 64 to 98. We can do this. 34
34.
years.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's, like, how old I am, right? That is obviously that
Mhm.
is well within living memory, and
Yeah.
it is a very easy allegory, but I think the particular tone deafness that you are speaking to is right on because it's more like, "Well, this
Yeah,
is
I wanna
my
get
experience of this as a white person," and you're like, "No one cares."
I just think that there's something that feels wrong about telling a story about trying to explain something that happened specifically to black people without using any black people to tell the story.
And
That's the part that feels weird to me.
I think and completely agree with you, and I think if this so I feel like if this movie was made now, if you made the distinction of having an incredibly racially diverse cast,
Mhm.
and then the thing that is separating them is the emotion and is, like, when they become, like, technicolor,
Mhm.
whatever their kind of racial background is,
Yeah.
I think that could have potentially been a more, uh, dir not direct, that's not the word I'm trying to say, but a more nuanced look at how do we really categorize difference as humans, right? Like, humans
Mhm.
are always trying to we're always doing the us versus them thing.
Yes,
And
we certainly are.
we certainly are, to our great detriment as a world. But I think it's one of those things where it does ring a little hollow when you're kind of like, "Okay, we get it." But, like,
Well, a thing that I take issue with the fact that they turned this into a metaphor is that everybody in this world has the opportunity to
exactly.
turn into color. Black people do not have that
Exactly.
ability. Like
Right.
they are
That's true.
in a system where they are uh, systematically
Right.
oppressed, right?
Right. Yeah.
Their skin color, skin tone is always going to stand out. And it's not something they can change about themselves. And it's not something
Right.
they should change about themselves,
No.
even if they could. Um, it shouldn't matter at all. And but so it's a clunky metaphor within the movie because
Yeah.
all of the white people in this movie who are black and white have the opportunity to turn into color.
That's
So it's
true.
like
That's
so the
true.
oppression just doesn't work the same way, and it's kind of like, and it makes you feel at the end of it, if you have in your mind like, oh, the people who are in color are a stand-in for black people. If you are thinking that way, if that is the logic that you're following,
Right.
then
Mm.
as you follow through the rest of the movie, everybody eventually turns to color. So
But
you could,
that's
and
not,
everything is
yeah.
fine, and everything is fine, and everything's hunky dory, and everybody gets along because everybody's the same. But that's not what can happen in the real world.
Right.
So it gives you the false impression, and this is a thing that Hollywood will always do, even with movies that have
Oh
black
my
people in
god.
them that are
Yeah.
about civil rights issues. They're going to make these movies that make you think that like a simple fix is going to solve the problem. And not only a simple fix, but something that a hero, the person
Yeah.
who can come in and save the town, is like one person is going to be able to come in and fix this whole thing. But the problem is not at the individual level. The problem is in the systematic oppression of people. It's within the entire
Yeah.
system. There are people who are well-meaning in this world who are liberal and believe in equality, who are still being racist because they are existing in a system that forces them, and they don't question it either, that where they will be racist even if they think they have the best intentions. But if you go along with the status quo,
Right.
then you continue to serve that system of oppression. So
Because
that's where
you're
I don't like the metaphor. It's like
yeah.
it's serving this purpose of being like, look, it's like that thing that happened in the 60s with
But it's
African Americans.
not. But it's not. It's, like,
Right.
intrinsically, deeply not, and I think you're totally
Hmm.
right about the, like, when you're yeah, when you're talking about systemic oppression, the answer
Hmm.
is never one person fixes it. The answer is
Hmm.
never, "And then everything was fine." Like, it I think it is a much more nuanced and difficult and challenging conversation that is it's kinda one of those things of, like, if you don't know, just don't say anything, you know what I mean? Like, if the because it's,
Yeah.
like, ultimately, right, the problem with people that kind of make those clunky metaphors
Hmm.
or are like, "I could never be racist," and it's like, but you're still actively benefiting from the
Yeah.
systems of racism, and you're still actively benefiting from these systems of oppression that you because it doesn't directly affect you, you don't have to face them head on. Like, you're not
Hmm.
forcing yourself into that deep discomfort of confronting your own preconceptions and your own privilege and
Hmm.
your own entrenched, like, power,
Hmm.
and it creates and yeah, and I think it is one of those things where I'm like, I do kind of wish that this film had not even gone that direction and had sort of just kept it at the, I mean, it's obviously like,
It would
I
have been
get it,
nice if
it's
they
so
had.
obvious, like, it's so obvious, like, they're in
It's so right
color,
there. I was like,
it's
there's no way
color.
they're not gonna say this. And yeah,
Of
it
course
just
they
makes
are.
it feel very clunky to include it because of all the reasons that we've just, elucidated on.
Yeah,
Um,
and it is more of just like, this is not out, like, I mean, and I obviously we've been talking about this of like, but it's also one of those things where to me, I always have the thing of like, it's not our story to tell. Like,
right. Hmm.
aspects of it, sure, like obviously in the way of like white people benefit from a system of racial discrimination, and it's
Hmm.
kind of on us to educate ourselves and disentangle ourselves and our communities from those systems, and
Hmm.
to be actively like anti-racist and like actively, speaking truth to power in those situations. And
Hmm.
it's nothing that, like, I personally, right, like, it's not a thing that I, or I think really kind of any white person can like speak to in the same way, that feels true and
Hmm.
um that feels real, because it's not the same experience. It's just not, and because of that it doesn't ring true in the way that other parts of this film really do ring true, and that really
Yeah.
are beautiful and great. But that part, yeah, clunky is the best way to describe it. It's kind of the last little bit of the film, and I was like, but why?
You know what I would have liked?
What?
I would have loved it if Don Knotts' character, the TV repairman, was black and he was throwing these kids
Fuck
into the
yeah.
television to like teach them a lesson, to be like, you don't know how fucking good you have it. Like, fuck you, you stupid little privileged white ass bitches. Like, I'm gonna
I
show
would
you
have
what it's like to go through this shit. So,
I
that I think that I think might actually kind of like
and then
if that would probably serve some problematic things too. But to me, that was my first fix. It was like, you could do nothing else and just like make that one character black and be like,
and
I'm
then
gonna show you kids what the fuck is up, like.
it becomes like a Quentin Tarantino movie, and they start
Yep. It just becomes Django
it
Unchained.
just becomes Django
Um,
Unchained.
maybe if there were even some like people of color at the high school
Like any
before they go into Pleasantville, if there was anybody besides white people in the entire
That's
movie,
okay, and that's the other thing too. When I said everybody is white, I did not mean just in, I think I may have said in Pleasantville. It is not just in Pleasantville. It is the start to finish whole film. It's the whole film,
Yeah,
it's the whole thing. It's the whole
yeah,
thing. It's
yeah.
the whole 2 hours.
Yeah, which is not like the worst problem in the world, especially if you're making a movie about suburban America. I mean, the suburbs have
Yeah.
people of all colors now, which is great and good and should be represented in movies. But if you're making a movie about, white people
It's
learning a lesson, I can get it. But yeah,
yeah.
this just felt like it was a misstep in a direction that it didn't need to take. It didn't need to take it to that, like, let's call the girlfriend colored, because then it again, because like you were saying, the rest of the visual metaphor of the movie is great about sort of people coming online and being within these systems of
Yeah.
repressive social systems.
Right.
And as you said, like, people are going to other each other, no matter, like, in that's human nature. And I would have, yeah, I would have liked it much better if they had steered clear of even going there and making it more of just like, we're talking in general about the ways that people have of, and you could say, you can make an argument that they don't ever directly make that comparison, that like calling the girlfriend colored is
But
just
it's
a word that they came up with within their world. but it's such a loaded phrase,
But
and
that's
it's
the
like
thing.
the thing that makes me feel bad about it is that it's like a gag. It's serious. It's
That's
not
what I
played for
mean.
laughs, but it's still a gag, at the expense of the pain and suffering of a whole group of people who actually have experienced that pain
And I think
being
that
played by people who did not experience that pain. And that is
exactly.
problematic to me.
Because when I was watching it, and I think that you kind of just hit on something that I didn't necessarily have the right word or the right uh formalized thought about, but this is what it is. It's a cheap shot, first of all.
Yes, it's a cheap shot. Exactly.
Second of all, it regardless of if the rest of this movie sort of exists in this like zany magical world, that word has such a specific connotation in American society that
Hmm.
you can't disentangle the two. Like you just can't do it. And third,
Hmm.
it is a further othering because again, there exists if you were seeing this movie in 1998,
Hmm.
there is a good possibility that you grew up in a world where that was normal. Where
Right.
seeing where seeing signs for, you know, a white water fountain,
Right.
etc.
Whites only
Whites
bathroom,
only,
etc. Yeah.
where that was entrenched and normalized and you and that was just like the place you grew up, the
Hmm.
culture you lived in, whatever. On and it's like you're actively reminding people for whom that is quite painful and for whom that is so I don't know, just
Visceral.
visceral. Yeah, visceral is a good word. And you're doing it again as kind of a cheap shot and it just for a film that and in all of the other aspects is very good about kind of building the emotional core of characters and the emotional core of here are experiences that we all have as humans and as people,
Hmm.
and these are the things that kind of make life interesting, right? These are the
Hmm.
things that are the the icing on the cake, so to speak, or whatever, of human
Hmm.
experience. But yeah, to have that as the kind of ending thing was just like that wasn't necessary.
Yeah,
Like
and
that,
that's why I think it's just like tone deaf. It's sort of
yeah,
like like a person who wanted to remind us that this thing isn't that this was in the recent past. This isn't something that we can just sort of ignore. This people do this
right.
thing. But like somewhere I remember reading a quote that Mel Brooks said where I'm going to paraphrase a lot, but essentially he was like, you know, Mel Brooks, king of comedy, was like, there are some things that I'm not going to touch with comedy. Like, specifically talking about, like, I mean, this is the man who made Blazing Saddles, right?
Yeah,
Like, a send
yeah,
up of a Western with a black sheriff. And, like, that's the whole thing. But as a Jewish person, he's like, there are some things that I'm just not comfortable joking about. And, like, the pain and oppression of a whole people, like, he's like, I get it. I'm not gonna like make fun. I'm not gonna make a lighthearted comedy about like, you know, the slave trade. Like that's just not like
yeah.
that.
Or
There's other arenas to satirize about like comedy that we're getting off topic because this is not about Pleasantville anymore. But like when it comes to comedy, like I personally always want to keep track of like who are you lampooning, right? Because like
right.
it, in my opinion, comedy functions at its best when you are satirizing the people who have the upper hand.
Always.
Um, because it's like
Right.
it's way more interesting. There's more stakes to it when you're like, this is so if you're like, and I guess that's what the whole concept of punching down is, right? It's like when you're punching down on people who like don't deserve this ire, who don't deserve this kind of like
Right.
scrutiny. It's like, what are you doing? You're not using comedy for anything beyond laughs, which you could argue is all it's supposed to be for. But then again, it's like
But
these things
it's
have consequences. And so, yeah.
yeah, and that kind of gets into the punching up and punching down. I think about it in the and the construct of like like a court jester
Hmm.
being the person who could make fun of the king to his
Yeah, you
face
want to poke fun at the king because the king is the
because
person that the people need to know is still human and not above
exactly.
you.
Exactly. And it's a different yeah, when you're making jokes at someone's expense, they're always going to land better. Yeah, when it's an oppressive system or a person in power or whatever, but it's like
Yeah, I'm not
if
a
you want
comedy
to
geek, so
if you
other
want
people
to
could speak more
of course,
definitively
but
than
it's
I could, but like it doesn't feel good to me.
but it's the thing of like do you want to do an hour-long comedy special about how fucked up trans people are? Do you really think they're the ones that you need to be going after right now?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's those kinds of things of like what what are you getting out of this? Like it's just
Yeah, there's
and
a
that's
bigger power structure at play here that is oppressing all people, all
exactly.
minorities and people who are on the
Yeah.
receiving end of it that needs to be, examined and,
Yeah, it just needs
prodded fun at.
yeah, exactly. And I think that there are aspects of Pleasantville that are trying to be satirical, right? Of kind of poking a bit of fun at the sort of idealized version of 50s America, post World War II America. There are
Mhm,
aspects of that of satire in there. Um,
mhm.
but it's a little I think if it had just stuck I mean, because I'm like, the thing is,
Again, this would have been a very tight Twilight Zone
that's what I'm
episode if they
saying.
were just like, these people are becoming colorful and they're different and that's it, and then like they learn how
Yeah.
to whatever without having to kind of like make it a whole allegory for race or for anything
And I
else.
mean,
And again,
realistically,
you could make an argument that they're not doing that because it's I don't know, but like
it
whatever the symbolism is so like on the nose to me. It feels
it
like
just felt
you
weird.
can't miss it if you're keyed into it.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, if we're in the world of the 1950s, like just focus on gender politics if you want to like hit
I know
that really hard.
the movie is trying to cover so many
It,
things,
and that's the
which
thing, it's covering everything and I'm like just and I think that is another of
it's allegorically trying to cover race. It's covering patriarchal norms. It's covering just in general repression. It's covering repression in all its forms. And yeah,
yeah, it's too much and I think this is another thing too of it feels a little like just biting off a little bit more than you can chew maybe.
yeah.
Because the things that are that
It has first feature vibes. It's
it
like
has
I have
first feature vibes.
all these things that this filmmaker wants to say. Like I get it. You want to like get it out and like you have all of these ideas and you want to like put them down. But sometimes that means that the end product isn't as focused as it could be. Which I don't know. Maybe that's not a fair thing to say because Gary Ross had been writing screenplays for like 10 years, 10 or 15 years before he made this. So like, and screenwriting is like the first stage to like getting
Yeah,
your thoughts in order. And like, Big does it super well. but you know, when it comes to the thing that like you want to make, like, you know, you see it a lot where people just put everything out there and it's
Yeah.
great in its own way, but it's also like, ooh, you kind of did too much, and if you had focused it just a little bit more, it would have been a tighter message that you were getting across.
Yeah. It just would have come together. And all of that is to say, again, I think this is a very enjoyable film. And it's just
Yeah.
really the
No,
last like
totally.
20 minutes where I was like, don't talk about that. That's not what this
It's just a little, yeah, it's a little bit of a misstep.
It's a bit of a misstep. Yeah.
I can imagine that black people watching this in 1998 were probably a little pissed off. It's just like, pfft. I mean, or maybe
I
pissed
can't
off within the
imagine.
world, just like business as usual. These motherfuckers made another movie about us without us in it. Okay, you know.
I honestly, uh, I can't imagine that this had a large black and like BIPOC audience in 1998. I can't imagine that this film was
Yeah, I mean,
like
I don't know. We don't
maybe. I don't
we don't
know.
know who goes to see movies, but yeah, I don't know. More than likely, maybe not. I don't know. We'll be right back with more Brother Sibling Movie.
Okay. Oh, I put this in the wrong spot. This was supposed to be my thoughts and takeaways. It's fine.
Yeah, we can get
Um,
into that.
I think we should do thoughts and takeaways because my attention span is waning.
I know the way I know that you're coming to the end of your capacity to keep talking about smart things is that in the frame you go from about
I just
being
start
this
thinking.
tall and you just start sinking down to a lower part of the frame. Like, I'm down here now.
I'm trying to sit up. I'm trying to stay sitting up, but it's also very hard. It's just,
Yeah, let's get into our thoughts and takeaways. I think we talked about a lot of stuff about this movie, so I think it'll be fun to sort of wrap it up and see what our sort of final thoughts are.
all right. Here's my thoughts and takeaways of Pleasantville.
Woo.
All right. So I've seen this movie a few times in my life, but this was sort of the first time I'd rewatched it in probably like 15 years, I would say. Um,
Mhm.
and I came away with three main takeaways from this film.
Nice.
First,
Hit us with
anger.
them.
First, anger.
So anger.
I was so angry. I was angry at all of the men in the bowling alley talking about their wives as if they're fucking domestic staff instead of partners who need to be home at a certain time and need to make them dinner. I was like, you bitches, you have two hands. I was so mad at George for telling his wife who she could and couldn't be. Why are you laughing?
I'm just thinking to myself, don't say it, Evan, but I'm just like, well, it sounds like it's somebody's time of the month over here. So you can murder me off screen. I will take it. I deserve it. But please keep describing your anger because it is correct and righteous, and you are right
I
on.
am going to find a creative way to ruin your life.
Oh man, good. It
Good.
needs more ruining than it's already got.
All right. So I was mad at all of these things. Also mad at my brother for saying stupid shit.
Being a fucking twat.
Bring a fucking cunt about it. Um, so just like across the board, there were so many things that made me angry in this film. Like I was mad at Skip for viewing Mary Sue
Being a teenage boy.
being a teenage boy and like only thinking about Mary Sue for sex. I was mad at Whitey and all the little other Nazi fuckheads who, are seeing joy and expression in people and are using that as a catalyst for violence. It was just it was terrifying and it was angering, and it's frustrating. I think especially in 2025, when we were recording this, we are about 5 or 6 days away from having a fascist in the White House who is a horrible person and surprising no one. I don't fucking like very much. Um, and like everybody in this film is so concerned with keeping things pleasant that
Mhm.
they are not allowing society to change and move forward. And that is what I feel like every day, of where these oppressive systems are so entrenched in their power and are so entrenched in this status quo that they are not allowing for the natural progression and evolution of humankind and human consciousness. And it is evident in our world. And while obviously this movie was made 25 or 26 years ago and maybe couldn't have foreseen the rise of, or the intensified rise of, white nationalism and the
Mhm.
evangelical Christian movement
Yep.
and incels and all of this stuff, it's still made me angry because I was like, this film is not hypothetical to me in my life and to the people that I love and care about's lives. The
Mhm.
things that this film is portraying are not, they're not fantasy. This is what we can expect. This is what we are bracing for. And it was angering and infuriating um to watch it. I was just like, fuck you guys. Um, just of this sort of
The movie made you feel something, and that's
the movie.
it's doing what it's supposed to do
And
then.
and I think that, again, it's not that I'm not angry because I like hated the film. I'm angry because what it's showing is real. And I'm
Mhm.
angry because what it's showing is accurate to the kind of political situation that we find ourselves in now. And that's really
Yeah.
scary and frustrating and terrifying. Um and I wish that a mural could solve it all, but it's not going to. There's greater political action to kind of
Bro,
do.
side note on that, how good of a painter is Bill that he learned how to be the world's
Bro,
greatest cubist wall
bro.
window painter in like literally a day. Also, they put that mural up in like a night.
I
Like there are so many little logic inconsistencies, but hey,
It's
we're living
always
in magic TV land, so fuck it. They
let's
can do things
say,
as fast or as slow as they want to, I
yeah, a
guess.
mural that would probably take, like, I don't know, like, at least 4 weeks to do. They were like, "Bang it out in a night,
Exactly.
it's fine."
I was like, oh, we'll just do this overnight. Like, what? Are you crazy? Like,
Like,
gonna
fucking
take
lunatics.
forever.
I know, it would take
Yeah.
forever. Okay, let's see, what else did I get out of this film? Okay, the second thing I got out of this film is that the best things in life are not always comfortable. Um, Being a human, it's about pleasure, it's about art, it's about knowledge, and understanding yourself and confronting your anxieties and your fears and your wants and needs. And like sometimes that is not comfortable. Sometimes, like Evan was talking about with kind of, Carl Jung and like shadow work and stuff, those are not comfortable things to confront in yourself, and they are necessary. Um,
Mhm.
they are necessary to shift your understanding and to give a greater, to allow other people to be the fullest version of themselves with love and compassion. You have to be the fullest version of yourself and show up with
Mhm.
awesome authenticity and compassion. Um, Unlike a lot of soon to be elected and appointed officials in our government. I hate them all. I can't stress that enough. The third thing that I got out of this movie, I would say I would have loved to see more of the sibling dynamic develop and be strengthened, but you do get the sense that these siblings do really love each other, and I think they have very divergent personalities, but they come to a deeper understanding of each other with a lot of um, compassion. They're able to see each other more fully, and just kind of be like, okay, like you're the person that you are, and I'm the person that I am, and we both have strengths and weaknesses, and they kind of, yeah, they become a slightly more fully realized relationship by the end of the film, which I do like. Also, side note on that front, does Jennifer just like never come back? Like, is she a missing person now? Like, she goes
I
to
wrote
college in Pleasantville. What happens to her? What?
I
How?
thought of all of these. I wrote all of these questions in my notes. I was like, so are her real world parents just not supposed to notice that their daughter has gone
They're
missing
like
for
16.
4 years, I'm
Their
assuming?
16-year-old daughter. And I mean, maybe
Yeah.
I think we get the sense that like time moves differently because when they
I
get
think it's a Narnia
it's
situation
a Narnia
because
situation.
I think that Toby David whatever comes out, and the when he encounters at the very
It's
end
like
and
a
he
day
sees his
later.
mom, like, yeah, it's probably like that same it's probably that same night, because the whole conceit of the
Right.
movie is that their mom is going out to like meet some hot beefcake that she's gonna go whatever have
Yeah.
fun with, and then she comes back and she's like, I feel so old. So I think it's literally the same night. So yes, I think that the entire situation that happened within Pleasantville, which probably was like 4 or 5 weeks worth of events or
She's
something like that,
but
took
Jennifer
place over the course of a 22-minute episode within the world of Pleasantville, in
Jennifer
the real world, I
is
mean.
still gonna be gone for more than 24 hours. She's a missing person. Like, what?
I
Like,
know.
I don't.
Like,
I was like,
where is our daughter?
I know. Also,
She's
just
in the TV. Oh, okay. So our daughter is missing,
oh,
probably
right.
hijacked by an insane TV repairman who has an old pedophile, and our son is telling us that our daughter is in the television, so he's
He's
psychotic and needs to
insane.
go to a mental institution.
Oh my god. I
Uh,
know. We don't see the 5 years later after Pleasantville when this wrecks their entire family.
yeah.
I will also
Jennifer is still missing.
I will also say
You
that
guys, she's in the TV.
you
It's like
guys, more
she becomes like a
Dorothy for
Jumanji
you.
situation.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I will also just say that because it's the late 90s, this movie does end with a super, super great representation of a parentified child that made me mad as well. That also made me mad in a big way. I was like, that is your son,
all of
not your
all of
therapist.
all of the boomers made stories about them being the kids they had wished they could have been to their parents, while
Mhm.
simultaneously expecting us to be the kids they wanted us to be, which they wanted themselves to be to their parents. But that is not healthy.
It's super duper not, because if you're 16, uh, maybe you're not the person to process your mom's like internalized feelings of like guilt and being unattractive with. And you're not the person to tell her that everything's going to be okay, because that's a parent's job. That's not a child's job. That's a parent's job. Um,
Indeed. Indeed. Indeed.
all right, I've
To be
yelled.
fair, fair to that particular character, she was not prompting him to help her. He opted to do it himself. But
I know,
still,
but that's an
the
expectation that is set at a young age. Sorry. Sorry. I'm going to stop yelling. Please do your thoughts and takeaways.
all right, I will. All right. What did I think about this movie? Pleasantville is a delightful, if slightly problematic, metaphor about fascism, racism, etc., etc. As a sibling movie, for me, it doesn't really foot the bill very well, as the sibling relationship isn't really centered toward the plot of the movie. But I do like that they have, in essence, the reverse and equal character arc. Um, the constraints of the world of Pleasantville help them to realize what they were missing in their lives and help them to become more fully emotionally available adults. You know, they have changed through the course of being in this place that is on the surface just kind of pleasant. And I definitely like that a lot. And I do also really like that the movie is essentially about learning to embody your emotions. That repression is the devil's workshop where little tumors go to grow and fester into full blown fascist mania. Um, as a person who in my life has had that elder sibling, elder son, whatever expectation of being and also just being naturally inclined to be a peacekeeper. I i resonate with this idea of being a pleasant person as a way to cope with things that are somewhat that are out of your control, out of things you're experiencing that you can't fully explain, that you aren't ready to process, that you not then put hope to escape into the world of, let's just make everything okay. Let's try to make everybody happy with one another.
I
Um,
I feel like
and
I
as
tell you a lot of the time, "Evan, just be a little bit of a bitch. Just
right,
just be a little bit of a bitch. It'll make you
right,
happier."
yeah. So as a person who has indulged in that pleasantness, I mean, I'll tell you, it's not really worth it at the end of the day. It's always better to be authentic than it is to be a version of yourself that you think people want to like. And I appreciate that that is sort of on display here in David's storyline in Toby Maguire's sort of character arc. Um, as we talked about, I don't really like that they take the metaphor of the world becoming colorful into a racial place without giving any real world lip service to the people for whom civil rights were a real struggle. It's a little insulting to have these people turning into color to be given lip service as an African American thing, only for the denouement of the film to be that it turns out that once you embrace your emotions, you get color in your life too. Well, try telling that to any black person in America. You don't get to just wipe this off of your face and be part of the crowd. Like, you have to live with the world of systemic oppression that our people before us have instituted, and people before us and currently are maintaining around us. So it's important to remind yourself that this is just a movie, and it's okay to, divorce it a little bit from the things that it might be trying to tell you. But it's important to note that the way we tell our stories, the way that we craft our narratives, create the ways that we live our lives. And so it's important to not just take movies for facts, like, it's important to be a critical thinker and do some reading and listen to people. Importantly, talk to people in your life, and have more friends than just the people in your immediate circle. It helps you broaden your perspective. And I think that this whole movie, while could have had a little bit broader perspective, all in all, one kind of problematic thing about the movie that I will keep harping on because it is important, but doesn't necessarily make or break the entirety of the movie and the good things that it is trying to get across. So in that sense, it's a little tone deaf, but it was the 90s, when well-meaning boomers were trying to make movies about us all learning to get along. But hey, guess what? There is a lot of reconstruction and reparation and downright trauma healing, and importantly, reconciliation that must happen in this world. And things don't just get wrapped up in 120 minutes that are easy like that.
Preach.
The moral of the story, kids, don't just be pleasant, be all of the emotions. It's okay to be a version of pleasant that also encourages you to feel all of your emotions, where you express yourself. This is a good thing. Also, Reese Witherspoon is so damn cute in this movie. And I would just like to melt away in front of her. So that is my takeaway.
It's your final takeaway is Reese Witherspoon is really hot. So is Joan Allen. Oh my god. I could have gone on such a rant about Betty.
You're a Betty head.
She is so beautiful. She's so sexy. She's like tall and willowy and like very sensual, and oh my god, I love her. I think she's so goddamn gorgeous. I also one of the last things in the movie is like her and George sitting on a bench together, and then it pans out, and on the other side of her is Bill.
I have a whole thing. I have a whole rant about this that I want to get into at the very, very end.
Okay, but can I don't know if this is gonna blow it, but the last thought of the movie that I had, I was like, are they gonna form a triad? Oh my god. Because I was like, Betty, if anybody could get exactly what they want in this world, it's you, my babe. Like, it is you. Get both those men doing shit for you. Make them kiss. It will be great.
Hell yeah.
But I think she is so gorgeous, and like her painting where it's like, oh my god, you're naked, girl. I'm like, I'm obsessed with her. I'm fully
since
oh my god, she's so hot.
Since we're on the ending and what happens there, I think I would like to give you a dramatic reading of my notes verbatim of me watching the end of this movie. Okay, here we go.
I love when you read your notes verbatim because they are always fucking unhinged. Let's go.
Yeah, it's like if it's like if I feel when I'm writing these notes, I feel like if Lewis Carroll had bath salts and was just doing All right, so this starts at about the time that they're going. The town is getting saved right after they win the case in the fucking To Kill a Mockingbird Atticus Finch style fucking courtroom scene. Okay, the town is color now. It's time for everyone to smile at each other as they take it all in. Bud did it. He saved the town. I think I mean David. Or no, his name is Bud. Parentheses, even though his sister started it. And now the end is just the opening of Blue Velvet. Oh, shout out to R.I.P. David Lynch, the man. I will miss you.
David Lynch died?
David Lynch, as the day of recording this, David Lynch has passed has shuffled loose this mortal coil.
Oh my god!
I know, very sad. David Lynch has
Holy
passed.
Shit!
I know, this is very sad.
That hit me a lot harder than I thought it would.
It hit me pretty hard. It hit me pretty hard this morning when I heard the news. I was like, "Oh my god, Blue Velvet, Dune, Mulholland Drive, the man." Okay, aside,
wow.
I'm sad that he's gone. He was a luminary. I love his films. There's so much to learn about from him. He also loved smoking cigarettes,
Yeah.
And as a man who taught who made art films in America, who taught transcendental meditation to artists, and also loved him a cheeseburger and loved him some cigarettes. Like
It's a
a
miracle he
true,
made it that
a
far.
true, a true American. Never there was ever, and never shall there ever be again. I think he embodies the best of what America has to offer. So
You know what, David Lynch, this is a send up for you, my man. Love your work.
the best. We haven't done a
We haven't done a David Lynch film yet.
David Lynch movie yet, so we should do one soon.
Yeah,
Okay, now for the continuation of my dramatic reading.
sorry, continue.
Okay, so now we're at the very, very end. Betty is sitting on a bench in a beautiful park with George, her husband. Bill is the man who she has had this affair with. Okay, Betty, what's going to happen now? George, I don't know. Interjection from Evan in all caps. Hooray! No one knows what the fuck is going on. Bill, neither do I. Evan interjection, all capitals for the rest of this. Wait, hold up. Did William H. Macy just transmogrify into Jeff Daniels? What the fuck is that ending? What? That is so weird. Why did the two men become one? Wait, is all of this just Betty's fever dream?
Oh my
Okay,
god.
so maybe Pleasantville is real and she's been imagining another world 45 years in the future where a kid jumps through a TV set and saves her shitty little repressive town. And then she has a crazy threesome with the two saddest looking men in the entire city. What is this Betty fever dream? And then I imagined a line where you would interject and say, wow, Evan, you are a psycho.
Here's the problem, is that you are a psycho, and so am I, because I was like, that does kind of make sense, though.
Right? How else do you explain that fucking ending? It was a David Lynch ending. So
it was a David Lynch ending. I thought it was like she was sitting on the bench and like they were on either side of her. Not that like George.
But the camera pans from George, it pans to her, and then it pans back to where George was, and Bill is there.
Oh, fuck, you're right.
Like, what the fuck is going on? He just turned into Bill? Like, what the fuck?
So here's what I'll say. This is further proof that Betty is like a super powerful, hot witch, and we should all just bow down before her and her glory, because like we're not winning against Betty. There's no way. There's no way.
She Agatha all alonged us.
She fully Agatha all alonged us, and holy shit, talk about another hottie patati. Catherine Hahn, hello nurse. Yes, I love that read of this movie, and I might have to.
Which would make the perfect Twilight Zone ending, because this is a great Twilight Zone episode. It just needs the crazy ending. So more fuel to the fire that this was just a spec script for a Twilight Zone episode that had to get turned into a meaningful Spielbergian emotional feature film of the 1990s.
I feel like if you ever go really insane, you should just do a supercut.
Too late.
Too late, it's already happened. You should just do a supercut of like recut Pleasantville into a Twilight Zone episode.
Ooh, that would be good. Yeah. I like that a lot. That'd be a good editing exercise for sure.
Just to like, because it's real. Like, there's an hour and 15 minutes of it. Just like, out of here. All right.
Get out.
Well, we've talked for so long. I deeply need to go to bed, and
I was gonna say, yeah, it's about that time for you.
But at my useless reproductive organs for a while. But before I do that,
there's one more thing.
Tambok na tiksi. Tambok, tambok. Tambok, tambok.
Vibe check.
Vibe check. So your video is freezing in the most lunatic place. It's just like your hair. It was amazing. It was fucking fantastic.
Good. Then
Okay,
my job here is done.
your
I'm
job is
needed elsewhere now.
great. All right. So, for those of you who may be listening for the first time, first of all, thank you so much for sticking with us. This was a real wild one.
Yeah. I had a good time.
I had a fantastic time talking about it. Evan and I don't rate things on a star system or a number system. We rate vibes on two things and two things only, and that is how was the story and how are the vibes. So, Evan, how was the story? How are the vibes?
Story's pretty good, you know, like I've mentioned some clunky metaphors, but it really, the story isn't the thing that gets me. I think that the execution of the ideas is more where this movie shines, you know. If I was going to give a name to the vibes, it's like I feel like it has this weird, the whole movie has this kind of oppressively overbearing feeling mixed with like a hint of sadness, but with like a patina of comedy. Like it's a really interesting tone that this movie is trying to
Yeah, that is
strike.
interesting.
Like it doesn't quite get the comedy and the funny moments, and the drama is felt, but it's
Yeah,
also in this kind of way where you feel like it's all kind of going to be okay in the end. So I don't know, like, again, the movie shines when it's when it is showing off the smaller moments, the little
yes.
moments of like when things are kind of like changing to color, when people are experiencing a new feeling for the first time. um it's like um the vibes are the best when they're relishing in like the little moments that bring
Yeah,
color, like smelling a girl's hair as you embrace her for the first time, or
yeah,
looking longingly into a hot sad painter's eyes as he wipes away your makeup tears, or
yeah,
standing in the rain and letting it fill you with joy. These moments really sell the whole
yeah,
thing, you know. But yeah, much like, as I've said, the Twilight Zone thing, but also kind of like the way that Columbo is a great show, but it's a 45-minute show put into an hour and 15-minute package, you know. Like
yeah,
I think that there is, I think it overindulges in some places, which is fine, but like, you know, it's vibey in some places, but it's really about the characters. It shines in the moments when color is getting brought into the world.
yeah. Yeah, I would say the story's fine.
Yeah.
If you boil it down to its like constituent parts, it's the world is in black and white. People experience emotion. The world becomes colorful.
Things get to have color now.
Yeah, like social tension ensues and then is quickly resolved. It's fine. Like I think the story's fine.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think the story is why you watch the film. I think the vibe is why you watch the film. Um,
The gimmick of the black and white world changing into color is really the strongest thing this whole movie
of
has going for it,
course.
and they executed it really well. So
Yeah.
even though it is maybe the strongest thing that the movie has going for it, they did it well. So I respect them for that.
Yeah, and I think the vibes wise, I wish that this film fell into the coveted category of all vibes. Um,
Right.
I like genuinely almost wish there wasn't a real plot or story and it was
Hmm.
just the world turning into colors. Like to me, I'm like, that would have been a fucking great movie.
That could have been
Um,
fun. Yeah,
but yeah, I think the vibes are uh yeah, a
they're
little
there.
they're there and
They're there.
they're
They're
satirical.
around.
They're satirical and they're melancholy and they're sad and they're not funny. And it's just yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It's sort of like
it's got a certain, je
No,
ne sais
no, je ne
quoi
sais
kind of
quoi.
quality about it.
Yeah, I don't have the word for the vibes, but I wish there were more of them. I wish
It could have been more vibey. It's not a specifically vibey movie,
it's
I
not.
don't think.
I think the problem is that it should have been a vibes only movie and it wanted to be a story movie, and I'm like, just do that one though. It was so good.
Right.
Um,
Commit.
yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it. It's a pleasurable film to watch visually.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, and the
Made you feel
actors
some things.
made me feel some things. The acting is great. And yeah, I think the story is a little clunky. And I think the vibes overall are good.
Yeah, they
Also
show up.
they show up. Also, can I just really quickly um I want to give the hugest shout out. I did not look up who did the costumes. Hugest shout out in the world to the costume designer.
Yeah, were they good?
They did 100% accurate 1958 costumes.
Nice. Good
In
on them.
across the board, like the makeup, the hair, the undergarments to structure
Mhm.
all of the clothes, they fucking nailed it. They
It's
fucking
a
nailed it.
This is a movie that shines and it does its best when it's indulging in the small details, so
Yes.
I'm glad to know that the details of the costuming and the makeup and the hair were on point, that they were of the era that they were supposed to be. That makes
Yes.
me feel like the people making it cared.
The people making it definitely cared. And I think that does count for something. The art, I think everybody that was in the art department, anybody that was in the production and like art department side of things gave like they put their whole pussy on this one. Like they nailed it.
It was a wop wop, make it drop.
It was a wop wop, make it drop. Um
I have an idea. Um, Since we're doing movies about siblings this season, should we also rate movies on a sibling scale? Like how
oh,
good
wait,
or
I love
realistic was the
that.
relationship of the representation of the siblings within this movie?
Ooh, yeah, I love that. I think this was tepid sibling
Okay, great.
relationship.
Then nice. I will go first. I give this sibling relationship a 2 out of 10. They fight and suddenly they're best friends as soon as Reese Witherspoon learns to read. Not realistic.
Yeah, I say tepid and there for plot devices only.
Yeah, totally. They do
Wait,
a good job. This is like a La La Land situation where
yeah.
like I am of the camp I don't like La La Land, but I am in awe of what Ryan Gosling and particularly Emma Stone brought to those roles because especially for Emma Stone, that
It is a
role
nothing
is
character.
fucking paper thin, and she brings something to it that makes you feel like this person is a character. Like if
Yes,
you were just reading it on the page, I'd be like, I do not know who this person is.
because this
But
is a
Emma Stone,
non-person. This is a
yeah, but
non-person.
Ryan Gosling, yes, but Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone somehow find a way to make it happen, particularly Emma Stone. But in this movie, I felt the same way where I was like,
Yes.
I don't think that the sibling relationship is on the page, but I think that Toby and Reese were able to bring just enough of it to the performance that you
Yes.
could feel it when they were trying to get it across.
Yes. Yes, I completely agree. Uh Not the best representation of siblings I've seen on screen. I enjoyed it. I thought their
Mhm.
character arcs were interesting, but just
Yeah.
them interacting through the course of the film, I was like, I
Yeah,
don't
I
get
wish they had interacted more,
I
and
do
there had been a
too.
bit. I wish there had been a bit more of a gradient from them starting out as diametrically opposed to them coming to understand each
Yeah,
other.
I
It
wish there
felt
had
a little bit like bop 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 when it should have been
yeah.
like brrrah.
Yeah, I think especially compared to My Neighbor Totoro, which in my opinion, I'm like 10 out of 10, no notes. That's a great sibling dynamic, like, fantastic.
Word.
Fantastic sibling dynamic, it's a great representation of siblings on screen.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think this one absolutely I think the sibling scale could have been higher on this one.
Yeah. Well, here's hoping that next week Movies does a little bit better on all fronts. Although,
I
again,
know.
we don't hate Pleasantville. Go check it out for yourself.
No.
It's a fun watch, and yeah, they do a really good job with the effects and the visual metaphors. It's worth checking out for that reason alone.
It's worth checking out. It's a fun movie. You know, I don't know, maybe it'll change your life and we're fucking haters. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. Everybody seems to have opinions about our Galaxy Quest episode. No one likes that one.
Oh, whatever,
Everyone's
man.
like, anyone who's talked to me about it, it's fine, huh? That's my favorite movie. I'm like, oh my god, I'm sorry. Jesus.
Wasn't I really sick for that one? I think I like borderline had a fever. It's fine. Who cares? You don't have to agree with us. We're just happy that you're
That's
listening.
the whole point of having a podcast, because we get to espouse our opinions and you don't.
I love that. Well, I think next week is going to be fun because next week's movie is a film that I really genuinely enjoyed quite a bit, and I've seen it within the past couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And I love all the actors in it. So I think we'll have a fun time. But until next week, you can email us brothersibling@gmail.com. You can now finally find us on YouTube if you prefer watching our silly jokes and japes in visual.
You want to see what we look like? You want to take a look at our gabs? You want to gab at our faces and
Evan,
come on down to YouTube.
Everyone that listens to this podcast knows us personally. I think they know what we look like.
You know what we look like. You know what we look like.
But
maybe you haven't seen us in a few years, and you can see what we look like now. I've got a beard.
It's YouTube at Brother Sibling Movie. All the socials are at Brother Sibling Movie, whatever the other ones are. Instagram, I think, is the only other one we have. Evan, where can the good people find you?
You can find me on all the platforms as Art of Evan K. That's on YouTube. I'm doing some live stream drawing videos these days, which is sort of a fun
those
way
are very
to...
fun. Those are very fun.
Oh, have you watched some of them? Yeah, I'm enjoying doing that. It's a nice little practice to keep me limber and keep me practicing. Mostly it's me trying to fill in my abilities in color, which I feel like I have neglected in my art education. So it's nice to kind of get a chance to just play around in that way. You can find me also on Instagram. Check out my feed where you can see some of those images that I draw on Saturdays. That's Art of Evan K. artofelvank.com for my portfolio site, and you can find me on Letterboxd where you can read my movie reviews of all these movies that we're watching. Just my name, Evan Kerna. That's Kohne. I spell it the normal way, so it's impossible to find me.
Fuck yeah!
Well, what about you and the people? Where can the people find you on the socials?
If people would like to send me hateful comments about my takes on Master Gardener
and witchy ways,
and general witchy ways, or just like, I don't know, or say nice things to me, or just see pictures of my dog and my garden, you can find me at Lawn Daddy Lives Here. There's underscores between all of the words.
Except Lawn Daddy, which is one word.
No, Lawn Daddy is 2 words. There's underscores between each of the words because lawn is the modifier of daddy. It is the type of daddy that I am.
Are you going to a master grammar seminar next week too?
I'm just saying, dude. I am. You know what? I am as the universe fucking made me. I can't stop now.
Oh yes, I know it.
As much as you may wish the contrary.
Nah, I'm happy for you to be exactly the way that you are.
I know. That's why we get a 10 on the sibling dynamic scale.
Always. All right, this has been fun. I look forward to talking to you again next week. Oh, look at you, little Gen Z. Oh, look at you with the little K-pop heart.
Be impressed.
I like it. This is the one I like. This is the simplest, and I like it. Yeah, this is the BTS heart that all the ARMY give to each other, where they're like, I love you, Jake. I love you, RM. I have my babies, Jungkook.
I love you. Wow. I'm just very impressed that I can do the Gen Z heart.
You should be. It's hard.
But yeah,
It took
because I'm
me
a
a long time to get it
trusty
too.
millennial, and I'm like, this is
It
very.
also doesn't make sense. This is so much
It is
easier.
so much easier, you guys. Whatever, it's fine.
You don't have to be contrarian just to make us pissed off, but you know, it is working, so.
It is working. So what are you gonna do? All right. Hey, go watch a movie with your sibling.
Go watch a movie with your sibling.
Okay, love you. Bye.
Love you too. Have a good one.